Hello, post-production Tales here. Just wanted to let everyone know before we start this Fire Emblem Engage list that this is our first impressions of the characters. At the time of the recording, we only have beaten the game once, and this was around the time when the well update dropped. Looking back at the recording now, I'd probably change the rank for a couple of the units. A follow-up video will come, but I figured I didn't want to waste this 2-hour session to go to waste. I mean, honestly, it's probably more than 2 hours, but yeah. The follow-up will include an assessment with all DLCs taken into factor, so stay tuned for that. And without further ado, let the unit list review begin.
Before we start, what is our rating system going to be? Is it going to be like CBAS, 1 out of 10? What are we working with?
I think it would be nice to go maybe either S to D or like giving it 1 out of like 5 stars. I think either or would work. Being able to just kind of chunk them up into 5 would be nice. So S being, the best units, like I'm pretty sure anybody can pick them up. And I guess in my sense, like a tier list would be like anybody could pick these up and still make them work without having to go through like growth rates, math.
Yeah, they don't have to work that hard.
Inheritance.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And emblems, I'll give like a slight exception to them. I maybe, but yeah, like mostly not have to look at growth rates to see like what's their optimal class would be nice.
Okay.
Also, SP is a big thing, especially since the latter units does get the luxury of like 2k SP, even higher. Whereas like certain beginner units, it starts off with like 300 SP, I think, which is like barely anything.
Yeah, it's awful.
Yeah, and plus, that fateful chapter 10-11 that basically just like gimps you like with certain ones. And this one I feel like is kind of unfortunate when it comes to the units that are very close to it, both before and after the chapter, because they are locked with certain skills that would help them overall. But I mean, you don't have the emblems for it. It don't work. Now DLC might fix that a little bit, because I know certain emblems are there, and mostly it's for the proficiency that I care a little bit more, so that you can recast into other ones. But you can't give that option. I also did say on the rating stuff, like if you don't have to use a second seal, that would be great. But I mean, yeah, obviously certain units will benefit a lot more if you do that. Even the best ones, I would say, benefits more with the second seals. So
I would agree with that. Some of the best characters are still like pretty second seal dependent on some things, just because like class issues. But we'll get into that.
So S to D, I guess, in terms of like tier list wise, I think that might be overall better. So just like the 5 rankings, you got S, A, B, C, D.
We'll do that.
Alright, so yeah, we're gonna first start off with Alear, the main character. They got Divinely Inspiring for their passive. Adjacent allies deal plus 3 damage and take 1 less damage. I guess this is very similar to like Fate's personal skills. Because yeah, they had like certain. I think Jacob and Felicia had.
It was Jacob and Felicia.
They had like skills like this one. You can see with the charts, it shows their base stats that they start off with, as well as the growth rates that they have. Granted, these are character-based growth, not class-based growth. I did not add those in. So if you want to have Serena's Forest open up, so if you want to look at like their total growth rates, that'll be something.
Honestly, not a bad idea.
Yeah. So I just have like 2 monitors for whatever, so if you want to put in your 2 cents for like classes wise, that would be pretty good. Overall, at least with my experience with these 2, they were okay. They never fell off, but I felt like they didn't really do much. They were sword locked, so axis units, I mean, I guess you could kind of punch as well. Their middling magic growths and base made it so that I only use the shield scrolls for them, so that they can off tank if need be, and break certain axe units so that other units can kind of benefit off of that. Endgame, once they became emblems and you put their fire engraving on them, then they became like this weird traditional sword fighter. In case of like they were insanely dodgy. Oh, also I put Marth emblem on these guys. They were insanely dodgy and they were able to crit like 30%. So I was like, oh, okay, so yeah, this is just a sword master, I guess. It was an interesting thing. They were insanely dodgy. End game, they had like a getting hit rate of 20%, being able to break defense, and everything is nice, as well as Marth's ability to gain another attack, I think. I don't know, but they weren't like the greatest units of all time, so I would probably say A. Also, the dragon typing made them really good, so that you can put any emblems on them, and you'll know that they'll be able to use it to their max effect.
A tier, easy. Because, like, I agree with a lot of what you're saying, where they were very dodgy. I went with Lucina Emblem. From the moment we got the Lucina ring, it was just on Colgate. Or earlier, whatever you want to call them.
Pepsi, man.
Yeah. It was just on them for the entire game. I actually did not put Lucina on anybody else going through it. Even when I got Marth back, I didn't put Marth on there, even though I did think it would be better. I had a lot of the same feelings, but unlike you, I ended up using Marth's engraving on Liberation. Early on, +5 Liberation with the Marth engrave is what I gave Alir before Chapter 10-11, and it made them super solid. With +5 Liberation and that engraving, they were good all the way up to like endgame. However, once we got to endgame, that's when they started to kind of fall off, because they didn't really do as much damage anymore. They were more just like, I'm gonna dodge in the smoke and like stall people, but my damage is kind of falling off depending on matchup. So I did not have the crit rate that you did at the time, because I think I was breaking like 17 to 20 usually, not so much 30. So they definitely fell off a little bit for me, but they were very good at like surviving, dodging, using their passive, which their passive, unlike Fate's passives with Jacob and Felicia, the +3 damage, I don't know if you ever learned this, was also guaranteed damage. So even if they had enough defense, you're still going to do that 3, which was amazing when I was using like Alchrist, because Alchrist would proc Luna, get the guaranteed +3, and then we're doing damage.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
So it was very nice.
Yeah. I mean, even in the early game when like Frame couldn't do any damage, you could basically just put her adjacent to Alir, and then she'll at least be able to do a little bit of damage. 6, I think, guaranteed. So it's nice. It's definitely there. Divinely Inspiring, pretty good passive overall. At first I was like, maybe I really want like the flip version of this one, but no, starting with my second Maddening run, I was like, okay, I can see this benefiting a lot more than the other one. Also, these are mostly going to be based off of Maddening with flat growth rates. Flat growth rates? Consistent growth rates?
The fixed growth rate.
Yeah,
yes.
Fixed growth rates. We're basing it off of that. If we kind of go with the whole random growth rates, I feel like our results might fluctuate severely.
Yeah, things are kind of up in the air. Absolutely. Yo, now we got Vander, our Jagan of the game. Passive is Alabaster Duty. If unit is adjacent to the Divine Dragon, grants crit +5 during combat to both of them. I'ma put Vander in C tier. Not D, because Vander is still amazing for those like early chapters. While you're still getting your party together, getting some gear, Vander's gonna help you out. After chapter 6, when you're getting Yunaka, he should not be in the party. I took him out of the party by that point, because you have Boucheron, you have Louis, like you have other people who can tank, and Vander is no longer needed. And because of that, I put him in C, because he is still useful. The passive is honestly not bad. I think his passive, if you could actually take him to endgame, would be useful, but I don't think it's the best thing in the world. Plus, it's a lot of investment that you would have to do, and I just don't think it's worth it. But it is still helpful for those early chapters. Outside of that, he just doesn't have the EXP gain. Classic Jagan.
As you mentioned, this is probably the most Jagan out of the modern Jagan use that we had. Like Frederick is like, everybody had like at least a decent growth rates, but yeah, I think Vander's probably one of the worst. I'm not exactly sure with Gunther. I'll have to look back at him.
I think Gunther's better.
Okay. But yeah, he does fall off a little bit, and Alabaster Duty crits is something that I usually don't have to rely on as much in early game, and having +5 on that is iffy compared to the other next to the Divine Dragon passives. I think this one's probably the weakest out of them, just because of the overall utility of it. He does benefit a lot from very high HP and defense in the beginning, being able to tank like 3 to 4 hits, whereas like other units can barely maybe prevent themselves from getting one rounded, especially with those earlier sword fighters. Yeah, he's pretty decent. Definitely one that I would like to have in the beginning. So yeah, I agree with the C tier for Vander. So, Glan, this was one of the units that I actually kept until endgame, and I really don't know if I really should have. But it was fun to have him on there. His passive was Verdant Faith. If the unit is adjacent to the Divine Dragon, grants hit +10 during combat to both of them. I know you mentioned that with Clown that you did see him miss, and I was like, man, Clown never misses. Honestly, I'll probably have to go to the previous recordings to see it, but maybe I just put him really close to it without knowing his passive. I just really wanted that +3 damage, which might have overall helped his accuracy. I would probably put him as C. There's going to be a unit that functions very similar to him in terms of the problems that he has. You don't want it to be a mage. That's the big thing. With looking at that growth right there, you really shouldn't keep him into a mage. What you want to do is be able to utilize that insane speed growth that he does have and make him either into a flyer or any other units that can benefit off of that one. Because at that point, you can put like a Sigurd Engrave on a Brave Lance, and if you can get enough SP, you can get like Speed Taker or whatnot. Then he'll start quadding. Quadding is really good. I mean, in any Fire Emblem game. He essentially turned into a mage killer, which is nice. But the amount of investment that you have to put on this unit and for him to pick up a little bit more. Honestly, I think I ended up putting more effort into him than John, which really just kind of puts him down the line because he doesn't have the growth to make it worth it. And there's clearly better units further down the line that'll basically did what I ended up doing with him as a Griffin Knight much easier. Definitely a C rating for me.
I'll agree with C rating. Absolutely. But I do think it's interesting to hear that you put more investment into him than John, because I thought John was like the guy for you. So that's very interesting to hear.
Yeah.
And also why I will also further put him into C tier, because I didn't think he would take that much investment. That's a surprise to me.
Yeah, I showed you that video of, oh, Alfred was like really good. And like throughout the whole time I was like, man, this sounds like a bit of copium to me. Basically, transition Alfred to Kalan, and that was my experience with him. Oh yeah, you can make him good, but like you have to go through so many hoops to get to that point. And even then, you know, it's not like you reclass him and he becomes good. No, you have to put more effort into it afterwards. You'll have to baby him a little bit more.
I see. Okay. I was curious about that. My review is going to be very similar to yours in the sense that he needs to be reclassed and invested into to like do what he's actually good at. Because he came in as just the wrong class. He did not need to be what this is. However, it is still nice for those early chapters because you don't have a mage. I think they could have treated him more like a mage and he would have been better throughout the whole game. Because his growths aren't bad. Like, literally switch his strength and magic growth, and boom. Easy, like, B or A tier unit through the whole game.
Oh, yeah.
Because they didn't do that, he's C, unfortunately. He's just not the class. He's not what he needs to be.
Now that we have the SP growths, I'll try to have the inheritance skill, like all the ones that I want, and have that going on with it, because I am debating whether or not it's Klon endgame that was good or just putting Lin on him that was really good.
It's just so weird to me that you put Lin on him.
Yeah.
That's so weird to me.
You can put Lin on everybody and she'll make any unit work.
That is very true. That is very true. So now we have Fram. She is one of the two twins, the other being Clan. Her passive is Crimson Cheer. If unit is adjacent to the Divine Dragon, grants a void +10 during combat to both of them. I would put Fram in a B tier. I put Fram in B tier because of how useful she is through the early game. However, the moment you start getting people like Citrine and Second Seals, you don't need to use her anymore. She's good because she comes in with Chain Guard and has heals. Going to be very similar to Jean in that sense. I think her base stats are better. Never mind. I take back what I said. I'm putting her in C tier. I just looked at Jean's base stats, and he has some higher bases than she does.
Ah.
She's C tier. I take it back.
Jesus.
I thought her bases were higher than they were, but she did have a lot of use in those early chapters. Kind of similar to Vander, except like she lasted a little longer in the sense of like use her early, but like you're gonna drop her later. Because the moment you get Citrine like promoted into Sage, and I think you get like maybe one other staff user by that point. But nonetheless, Chain Guard is a good passive, super solid to use. If you get the Renewal Ring on Fram or Jean, and you're having them use Chain Guard in those early chapters, that's like an insane combo.
Yeah.
Because Chain Guard is not going to take away that much HP. So they can like perma Chain Guard, and it's just no big deal. Which is what I abused. She is going to be Renewal Ring dependent in order to like bring out her max power. Outside of that, I would not use this character in a run, except for the High Priest run that I'm going to do later. She's definitely going to be a unit that I use for that. C tier, she's like your standard healer. There's going to be way better healers down the road. C tier filler. Sorry, I didn't know Jean was better than you. That's crazy.
Yeah, I will agree with C in terms of how much I've used her. She was the one that was first to go in terms of getting replaced by Ivy. I will say though, however, her strength and magic ain't that bad, and I know certain people have used her with the flashing fist. I heard good things about her for people who are really committed to using her, and I think she's the only one that I've seen that like uses fist alright in the middle to late game. I can't think of any other unit that I've seen like clips or anything that like uses the fist aside from Alir's Divine Dragon Fist, but that's cheating. You just put any mage with that one. So I would like to use her, and what's really funny with her is that on the second or third chapter, I think it's a third one. Third is when do you get Louis and Chloe?
Chapter 4.
Chapter 4. You could abuse the Chain Guard mechanic with her. I actually did that on my second run, so she's actually the highest level in the whole party right now. Basically put her up on a fort and then use Chain Guard. Yeah, and then the boss can't do that much damage to any of the units.
I see.
So you could do that. If you don't care about your turn count or anything, you could immediately like level her up that way. Also, in terms of leveling, she's nice. The game gives you a little bit easier access to staves around that early game point. You could have her just continuously heal everybody, and she's not really taking EXP from anybody. In terms of leveling up, she's not, I mean, she kind of does her own thing, which is really nice. Yeah, very excited to try her out, although from an initial playthrough I would definitely say C. The Avoid is nice though. Alfred, so I unfortunately will have to put him a little bit lower. Yeah, definitely comparatively to starting, even with like the second Manning run, I will say it is a little bit of a struggle to get him to where he wants to do, especially with that weird defense and HP spread, the base. Like he might be able to tank maybe a little bit, but yeah, it's really weird what he wants to do. I would like to say, in terms of an example, this is evil to do. If he had a different passive of like defense +2 that the later game unit had, I think that would have definitely helped him in the case of like what he wants to do, especially with his promotion class ability. Definitely having +2 defense would have been nice. That speed is going to hurt him a lot, which in this case is also very similar to Clown of like, he needs to reclass as soon as possible for you to be able to utilize that defense growth rate. I would probably just have to say D. Compared to all the other units, even the early game, I think he is probably the worst.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay. Wait, what was your rating for him?
It was D. It's the...
Oh, you put him in D? Oh.
Yeah.
Oof. I wasn't gonna do it. You know what? Never mind.
One other thing that I mentioned before passing it on, he makes Sigurd look okay. And then once you take Sigurd away from him, you realize how good Sigurd is.
That I will agree with. Because the moment somebody puts Sigurd on Louis, it's like a completely different ballgame. Sigurd and Louis is like a dream combo. I love that combo.
I put Sigurd on Saline for the second one, and she's using it pretty good. I don't know how the...
Oof!
Yeah.
Yo, okay, I wasn't gonna... No. Saline did not use Sigurd better than him. That's a crime. I can't believe you said that. Anyway, I would put Alfred in C tier. Because he is actually one of the people that helped me out super early in the game and getting through chapter 11 on my second time around. His growths aren't bad. I think for what he has, they're fine if you want to use him up to chapter 11. But the moment I got past chapter 11, benched. Like, he never got off the bench. Because he comes in way too early. His passive is okay, and he would take a lot of investment to really get going. So he was somebody that I just put like headlong rush on so he doesn't get frozen. Promoted him early, and I was like, alright, you're going to do some damage. And he can do that. He can do some damage early. Because like, his strength and defense are serviceable, but it's definitely not what he's best at. I definitely could have like probably picked a better character than Alfred. Honestly, I probably could have picked like Amber and done way better because I also think Amber's better than Alfred. But too much investment, not a whole lot coming from that investment. He just suffers from coming in too early, I think. I think if he came in later or was a lower level when he came in, it would be better. I think his level's too high for when he comes in. Because his base stats in comparison to like Amber are way too low for his level. His defense will be a little better, but his strength is definitely going to be lower. I'll put him in C tier. He's serviceable. He'll get you through chapter 11 if you want to promote him.
I don't know. At least for me. No.
Yeah, I don't know what happened with your Alfred, but my Alfred was fine. This is like the clan effect for me, but with Alfred. This is the Alfred effect now.
Gotcha. Yeah, hopefully he'll turn out a little bit better once I dump as much effort as I did with the clan. But first initial one,
gonna have to keep me posted on that. And now we have Etienne, the Firene retainer for Alfred, and your first archer. Her passive is energized. When unit recovers HP using an item, grant strength +2 for 1 turn. I will give Etienne C tier. Maybe B. High C, maybe B. Low B. I don't know. I'm kind of in there somewhere. I'm going to talk through this and I'll see how I feel. I think Etienne is really solid early until you get Alchrist. Because she fills that archer role. She does good damage. Like, her strength to dex is no joke. Like, she got that.
Oh, yeah.
Her passive, honestly, useless. I do not like her passive at all. Because my thing is she should not be getting hit. I want you to look at her defense and res. That is awful. She should never be hit. So, in a maddening run, if she gets hit, she's probably dead. Because she doesn't have high speed either. Her build is super low. Which is crazy, considering her whole thing is like she works out. But also I get it, because she struggles to like get swole. But she just doesn't got it for like the bulk. So I think her passive's useless. But she will absolutely blast a flyer. She serves her job super well up until you get Alchrist. And then I actually used both her and Alchrist up until chapter 10-11. But once I got to chapter 10, I actually don't think I brought her in there in either run. So she just got me through like the chapter 9 where you get Jade. And then after that I was like, alright, you're done. Actually, I'll put her in C tier. Now that I've kind of talked through that. She serves her role up until chapter 10, 11. Then after that, she's done. You have Alchrist. And then you also get like Fagato shortly after. There is no reason to run Etier any longer. Her growths are also just strictly worse. It is really bad.
I will say in terms of, yeah, the rating, very similar. C. I won't say it's tuning towards D because like she has her usage, like you mentioned with the flyers. Having that good strength and dex means that she's less likely to miss, which is really nice for a archer to have that. I mean, any unit obviously, but whenever you're relying on your archers to be able to hit whatever unit that they're specifically effective towards, yeah, it's really nice. It's your answer to the flyers in the early game. And the beginning chapter that she comes in makes it a lot more apparent that that is the case, and it is great because every other turn is another flyer down. She is okay in the case of what she wants to do, but yeah, very much of a glass cannon. And there's other build types that you can do which essentially function similarly that will be able to physically run around like majority of the enemies, which is probably why I would say, yeah, she's a little bit lower. And yeah, that energized passive is just, it is booty. I can't really say too much about that strength +2. Now, I will say though, if unit recovers HP verse from any source, she'll get +2. I think that might be overall a better passive for her. Anything would have been better than just this. Yeah, so C tier. Can't put him in D because she does have her uses, unlike Alfredo, at least for me.
Something I actually need to confirm on her passive, not that I think it'll help that much, is I'm curious if her passive also works even if she doesn't recover health. Like, say you just pop a vulnerary because you know flyers are about to come in, and you just get the +2 strength for when they come in.
Maybe?
I think that might help, but also it's only +2 strength. It's not that much.
Yeah.
If you need +2 strength, chances are you weren't going to kill him to begin with.
Now, we'll say this is the other unit that I am trying on the second mending run, seeing how she is going to work. I am very interested in seeing how much damage she can output if she becomes a warrior instead of a sniper, and then basically using merciless passive to be able to do a little bit more damage. Maybe that might help her out overall, but yeah, looking at the growth rates right now, it's gonna take a little bit of work. So, but warrior probably would be better for her rather than a sniper.
I can see warrior working better. That's an interesting idea.
Yeah, mostly just kind of hoping that 40% strength is going to be enough to warrant keeping her in the team.
Yeah, we'll see. Her build's still really low. I'm kind of concerned about her holding axes, but
yeah,
I'll let you hit me with the results.
Just have her get one giant swing and then it'll be good. Maybe. I
see.
don't know.
One good one.
Yeah. Boucheron, the other unit that I used as much as I used Clan, and yeah, this other retainer for Alfred. His passive is Move to Tears. When an ally joins a chain attack in this unit's combat, unit deals +2 damage. Gonna be a little bit more of a surprising, at least for me. For some reason, I was able to make him work. I would overall probably put him as a B, I would say, for Boucheron. His dex speed growths are pretty good, all things considering, and the build makes it so that every 5 levels here will be able to at least gain more build. I think IS's design for this character was to try to make heavier weapons work on him, whereas other units would like slow him down. You know, Boucheron's gonna be the one that's able to equip the higher level like steel and silver axes, and they were like, okay, that'll at least help with that middling strength growth. I didn't use him for that. I use him more or less just because he's a backup unit. Being able to just have an hand axe on him and then just throw him in the middle of just everything, and then have just that, like any unit that initiates combat have an 80% chance to do like 10% damage of the enemy's max health. That's pretty good. And the more that you go further into the game, if you try to abuse the dual assist plus, he'll be able to do like at least a little bit of good chip damage. And honestly, if you further put Draconic Hex on the guy, he'll be able to further reduce the stats by 4. But the biggest draw, I would say, of using him overall is that he is the one that does not need to use any emblem rings to still be able to work. Cloud's ring is probably the best if you can get it when God. That essentially makes him have +4 range for whatever unit he's trying to assist, and being able to have that much range on a unit is nice. If you don't want to go through that whole ring manipulation shenanigans, you could just promote him into a warrior and he'll still be just fine. Being able to have access to bows means that he'll be able to equip the longbow. It's like the weirdest unit in terms of like, you don't want him to do the most damage, you just want him to be at max health, and then he'll just, it's pure utility, which is why I really liked him. So that's why I give him the rating of B.
To clarify for the recording, the reason he has +4 range is because Claude Ring gives +1 bow range at max health. So he has longbow, which at default has 3 range. Longbow plus Claude Ring, he now has 4 range. Plus dual assist plus, he can shoot anywhere he moves with a +4 range.
Thank you.
Yeah. But I will also put Boucheron in B tier, even though I did not use him. Because I think among the early people that you get on, he's one of the first serviceable people. I agree with what you're saying that he does not need an emblem ring, because he doesn't. He's a backup bot. I think he's also a really good backup bot, because I don't know if that +2 damage is guaranteed damage similar to a Lear's passive.
It's guaranteed.
It is guaranteed? Alright, then easy B tier. Chances are, mid to late game, you're going to have multiple backup people. So you can have, like, Lapis attack first. Then you've got Boucheron attacking. Lapis is backing up. He gets +2 damage. Now he is also going to be backing up. So, like, it's a good time. I would be very interested in trying him in a later run, now that I kind of know how you did it, and just kind of see how it works. I definitely think among the early people, he's the first serviceable one with a solid passive. Plus, he can take a hit. If he needs to, he can take a hit. He got the HP for it.
He got that bulk.
Yeah, the heat thick. So
85% at base is like...
yeah, dude, it's like, what? It's like near Panette levels. Who has higher? Is it Panette or him? 85. Panette has 75. Okay, he has the highest at 85, and then you got some people tying at 75.
Yeah. That and the build was like the biggest thing, where I was like, I want to see how much build matters for a unit, but it's really good.
I think they did good with him. I think you could have bumped his strength up by like 10 more %, but he might be super good with that extra 10%. I don't know. I think he's solid though. B tier for sure.
Don't put him in a mage class.
Do not make him a mage. Please don't do that. There is no reason for that. Now we got Saline, Alfred's sister, the second royal and princess of Firene. Her passive is Gentle Flower. Recovery items used by allies within 2 spaces heal plus 50% HP. I give Saline a what is this?
Hey, what is
rating. No, I would actually put her in like C tier.
There's a lot of C tiers, man.
There are. That's because there's a very clear threshold in this game, and it's how useful are you after Chapter 11. That's the big one, honestly.
Yeah.
And if you're not useful after Chapter 11, like, you're C tier, unless you're Boucheron, then you probably got it. But I think she is deceptive and takes way too much investment to get going. You are going to be picking between her and Clan for your early game mage. Honestly, I would say bench Clan for Saline. Unless you're you, and like you do your weird investment stuff, but like don't do that.
If you're going for magic, yeah, no, definitely Saline.
Yeah. Yes, for sure. but like she's surprisingly good at close combat, which is why I think she's deceptive. Because she has amazing speed growth. She's a very good mage killer with her resistance. And like she has the strength to be able to kill a mage if you give her a sword. However, I think there are classes that she might be better as. Her promoted class actually is pretty good for her and what she does. But she is somebody I will be using in my High Priest run. I will say that. Because anybody with like that 35-25 like straight magic split is going to be really good. Like that balance split, going to be solid. However, for a generic maddening run, I think her passive is not good. I think her passive is not good. I think she's going to take too much investment. However, she can be serviceable and get you through chapter 11. And that's why I would put her in C. Because like you can make her work. However, she's not going to do much after chapter 11. She does have some use though. That's why I would put her in C. But like at chapter 11, you're getting people like Ivy and Pandreo, and like you better not use this girl. I better not see this onion in your party.
Yeah, that giant skirt she has. So I'm gonna go with I'll probably rate her a little bit higher, only because of what the update gives you. So there was this patch that came off, I think it was like either the first or second round of where they started giving you steel weapons. Now, if you actually hold on to those resources for like 2 chapters, you can upgrade that steel sword into a 11 sword. 11 sword at base has almost as much strength as a Bolganone tome.
What? Why is it so strong?
And with this being like one of the only starting mages that actually has sword access, yeah, she's going to be great for that one. So, and passive wise, it could be a little bit better. But honestly, if you want to make your vulneraries heal almost as much as an elixir and your elixir work almost as much as what it used to in any other Fire Emblem game, I think it's like relatively nice to have. Initial run that I did for Celine, that steel sword little trick didn't exist, so I couldn't use her for that specific purpose. But put her an 11 sword and she'll work wonders. There was that weird middle ground of like, I had a Lear with the 11 sword +1 like for my first one, and I was like, I don't know who can really use this 11 sword really well, and I was like, oh yeah, no, there's this girl that can have access to swords and has like a decent magic to start off with. Honestly, that small update probably saved her ranking a little bit more. I mean, looking at the growth rates still, like with this, like that is pretty balanced. This is
very solid.
If someone were to tell me that this is the base one for Robin, I would have been like, oh yeah, no, that makes sense. Everything's so balanced.
That's kind of what they went for, I think, with this one.
Especially with that Ignis ability.
Yeah,
definitely a little bit more interested to try her out with the Vidame class. I think she starts off with like a Lord class. There's like so many Lords in this game. I don't know which one's a Lord.
Yeah, we got a lot.
We'll see if she survives the fateful chapter 11. This is the unit that I did put Sigurd on, and having early game canter for a mage is really nice. B for Celine. But only because of that comment. If you don't have any updates or you have no internet access, I mean, first of all, how are you watching this? But if you don't have any internet access, then yeah, C. Because going through all the levels to get that 11 sword is gonna be a little bit harder. So the 11 sword is Hector's wolf veil, honestly.
That is crazy. I didn't know they did that. What an update.
Next is going to be Chloe. So this is the retainer for Celine. And Fairy Tale Folk is her passive. If a male and a female ally are adjacent within 2 spaces, unit deals +2 damage during combat. Oh, I forgot to mention this with Lear. One of the reasons why I would prefer female Lear rather than male, despite the fact that I played male, is hers, and also there's another unit that comes up right after this one that's can benefit a little bit more with that passive. Now, I guess with Chloe's case, you could try to mix it because, you know, it's a male and female, so it doesn't have to be 2 females. She's overall good, and honestly, I would probably put her maybe, yeah, in A tier, because looking at this overall, it's like the weird split between like Klon and Chloe. Like, she benefits more with magic, whereas Clan severely gets gimped at whatever damage department he's not good at. But with her, I can see Chloe doing fine, especially when promoting into a Griffin Knight class, just because of that high speed, getting that +2 true damage, and the fact that early game she is basically one-rounding certain classes whenever she can double them. Especially with, oh, forgot to mention, I did not play with any of the big, like, $30 DLCs. However, I did gain access to the weapons for the Fire Emblem Heroes ones. So I got one for Sharina, was that her name? For the...
Yeah, it's her name.
Yeah.
It's Sharina.
Her lance was relatively strong. I think it's like steel level, like base steel level in terms of the might. So she uses that really well. And yeah, she's able to one round most of the early game units, so really good for that. Just basically less investment clan, which is the reason why I would probably rate her that high. So A for me.
I think A tier is probably a really solid place to put her. If people have played FE7, they'll know about Florina, right? She has solid base stats similar to Florina, and she's honestly a little stronger because she has much higher strength at base. Her passive is going to be solid for helping her deal even more damage. She's going to be an amazing mage killer because the high res that she comes in with. You make her a Griffin Knight, and then later on, her speed and dex are going to be high enough to where they're not going to hit her anyway. She's going to do like that Flyer Pegasus job, and she's going to do it really well. To also kind of touch on you bringing up another character that also appreciates female Leer, there's actually a third character that also appreciates female Leer. There are no passives that appreciate male Leer, except for hers, technically. But female is still better. Because 3 people do it compared to the 1.
Right.
But yeah, she's going to be solid. She also will not need the investment Florina would. Because, like, with Florina, she could be, like, S or A tier. S or B tier. Depending on whether or not you give her the Burst Seraph and Energy Ring. Whereas Chloe doesn't need that stuff. She's super solid. I can agree with A. I did not use her because I think she's disgusting and eat bugs. But I think she's solid, nonetheless.
Gotta get that protein.
No, oh my god. That was filthy. But I could easily see her being A tier. I will probably also be using her. Ooh, let's go! Louis, the Riz man himself. His passive is Admiration. If 2 female allies are adjacent within 2 spaces, this unit takes 2 less damage during combat. This character is easy A tier. The only reason I don't put him in S is because later on, he just doesn't have the dex to keep up and like consistently hit people. But boy does he hit and boy does he tank. This is like the knight, your general. If you need somebody who's gonna tank and like do a really good job, this is your man. He's the one. There's no other like better option. He does it the best. Also, to do a little character introduction, he is also the other retainer for Saline alongside Chloe. I got excited to talk about him. Yeah, he's amazing. From the moment he comes in all the way to end game. Again, the only thing he starts lacking on is his low dex. He just does a solid job. I had him as a general through my entire Maddening run, but I think he would actually work better as a Great Knight. I think that's what you did with him.
Mm-hmm. And
the big reason for that is because there aren't a lot of enemies throughout the game that are going to abuse weaknesses like anti-cavalry, anti-armor. You're going to run into more anti-armor with like hammers and things of that nature, and obviously mages. But it's not as prevalent as it was in, say, like Fates. Fates, you have like beast classes and like a lot of other things that could like shred a Great Knight, and Great Knights I don't think were that good in that game. But, well, aside from the mobility, which is still good. But I think Louis as a Great Knight in this game would be better than General. Unless you just really want that swap passive. If you really want swap on General, yeah, I used it. I thought it was pretty solid. But the allied defense would be a better passive overall. And I would definitely run him as a Great Knight in all future runs. especially because I would also be abusing Cantor more in later runs.
Mm-hmm.
But Louis, easy A tier. He is the knight among knights. He does a super good job at it. He's going to be using your silver great lances, no problem. Give him Sigurd Ring and a silver great lance, and boy does he do damage. That man will take you to end game.
Yeah.
Don't ask him to hit when you get there though.
I will agree to that, although I probably would prop him a little bit higher in S. Granted, he does have that rest thing. Do not put him in close to mages because he will just paper mache. He's gonna die. However, the reason why I would put him in S is mostly because I put him in that Great Knight, and then being able to do the 2 less in damage during combat on top of the allied defense, reducing it further down to 3 is really good. But on top of that, I also put the genealogy engraving on his spear. Really helps with his overall dex or his accuracy. Yeah, I haven't really seen him like miss too much. So if you have problems with like accuracy per se, yeah, genealogy engraving is pretty good on him. Granted, he does have that one thing that will make him a little bit harder to manage, but I did like a mix between the two. First I did general and then I did Great Knight, but him as a character still works good with like either one of those abilities. Yeah, it really does help him out overall. Also, this is like one of the cases where like a combat passive is like useful and you can see it almost happen on every single enemy phase. Is really nice to have. You can put like relatively larger weapons on him, and if you make him into a Great Knight and also put Sigurd on him, you'll be able to get the max amount of movement. You get that momentum bonus. On top of that, you can also put override and then use a silver great lance to be able to just like chuck through most health bars to the point where he was one-shotting mages if they were even within the proximity of override. So yeah, he's pretty good. I gotta say, this was one of my hard carries in terms of like being able to just lock down a whole chokehold. Avalanche map in particular, basically just had him just kind of like put a block on one of the routes. So really good for that.
I think if I actually ran him with the genealogy spear, I would probably agree that he's S. But I had that spear in particular on a different unit that I'm going to complain about later.
Oh. All right.
So.
Okay. Initially, I was just gonna put a whole fruit on here, but anyways, she's a thief from Brodia, technically. I mean, we don't know too much of her hometown, per se. Kind of got that little dual personality. Not like the Ashen Wolf one. I forgot her name was. That one's an actual split personality.
Constance.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, so she's the thief that you can gain Train to Kill. While unit occupies terrain that provides an avoid bonus, it grants crit plus 15. She was an okay unit. I did have her until the very end game. Knives are really good in this game. Upgrading just even like a base knife to +1 makes it so that it just increases their might by 2. So that's really nice. Her passive makes it so that not only does it benefit her covert class being able to double the evade percentage, but it also gains her that crit plus 15. Very nice passive to have. I will say though, overall, I know like how the internet was like, like a big fan into the Corn Yunaka combo, being able to use like the smoke Dragon Vein to be able to provide a whole evasive tank. I mean, it basically just makes it so that any tile is an avoid tile for her. But I will say it kind of does, for me, it fell off a little bit in terms of the damage output. I don't know if that's something that she would like, but there was almost no enemy units that was hitting or that was even aiming for her, and whenever they do, it's usually a barrage of backup units that kind of got her killed overall, because, you know, flat 80% makes it a little bit harder for her to be able to tank those. I would probably put her at A. I will say in lower difficulties, I can definitely agree with certain people putting her at S, just because so many units are going to take a swing at, you know, a 0% rate. But she doesn't like block off spaces as well as Louis was able to, so That's the one unfortunate thing with her. I had the Corn Engravement on her, so in terms of debuff, yeah, she wasn't too bad. Being able to poison enemies. Oh yeah, that's the other bonus for knives. Being able to, if you do even a single point of damage, you'll inflict the poison status, making it so that they'll take +1 damage to the next sources of damage that they'll get hit by. So a solid, can't really kill as much, which was the main problem, at least with me, for Yunaka.
Yeah, I'll definitely agree with A tier. Because similar to you, later on she did start kind of falling off in how often she could kill things. But for like early mid game, those dagger reforges do so much damage. And when she has the Corn Ring, she's going to be doing a lot. Now, when it comes to people ignoring her in backup units, I did not have as much of a problem with that. Similar to the strategy I talked about before, I created like a wall of units I was moving forward with Smoke Bomb around them. I would always set up the wall of units first, being like Alir, Kagetsu, Alchrist, and then I would bring in Yunaka in the back and drop the Smoke Bomb. So she kind of like had a wall of units in front of her that prevented backup units from swarming her. Because she definitely doesn't need to take like any physical attacks. Her defense does not support that. Super good mage killer though. So I think she's really solid all around if you can still have somebody in the smoke with her to help her out. That's also part of why I put her in A, because she is really good at what she does. I think she's probably easily one of the best Corn Ring users, but she is still going to need some help. She's not going to be your solo carry, and that's why she's not going to go in S.
I will say maybe with the whole ring, the little smoke terrain, I think that other terrains might be slightly better. I'll have to do a little bit more testing. With how good obstruct rings were, being able to just create like ice pillars with like no cost sounds good. Fire tiles, I don't know if you've had a lot of uses with the fire.
I have not used fire at all. I have not used anything outside of ice and smoke.
Okay, fire is relatively nice. I mean, use the Roy. I don't know how much you actually use the Roy's engage ability.
I used it a pretty good amount.
Yeah, so like being able to do that every turn is pretty good.
Honestly, that does sound really good.
Yeah, +10, like shaving +10 health to the enemies, as well as like completely stunt their movement.
Their movement, yeah.
Pretty good. So I'll have to do a little bit more further testing. Smoke is still good. It definitely hinders their movement. She has that going for it, which is really nice.
Their utility is definitely what makes her super good in A. Absolutely. She's easily going to make it all the way to endgame. And then at that point, she becomes a little matchup dependent, but she's a solid unit. Easy A tier. So now we got Anna. Lady Anna, some might call her. You're a wandering merchant with the passive Make a Killing. You may obtain 500 gold when unit defeats a foe. Trigger percent is her luck stat. Luck stat is super good. You can make it work. Overall, I didn't use her. I never abused that passive. I didn't get that 500 gold. I think as a unit, she suffers from the exact same issue as Clan, and so she's going into C tier. She is not the class that she needs to be. You can look at her strength and her magic growth and like, it's clear as day. She is meant to be like a sage or something that is not the axe fighter that she comes in as. It's fine for her map in like a couple chapters if you want to use her, because like it's serviceable, but if you want to use her past chapter 11, you've got to put a lot of investment into her. Plus I think her passive is like okay at best, because you're not going to have money issues going through the game, at least if you were online, because I know they gave us like a couple cash injections to help out with that. But C tier, should have been a mage. Health is pretty good when she comes in though, so she can take a hit if she needs to. She's no Boucheron, but I'll put her in C tier.
Okay. Yeah, I would probably agree a little bit in terms of that. Although it's a little bit hard for me to put her within the same level, I guess, as Klan. I might bump her up to B. No, I'm not really an Anna sympathizer. I didn't like her initially. But honestly, with looking at her magic index, she is definitely better as a mage. I think she does escalate a little bit faster in terms of that than Klan, which is my main reason of why I would probably put her a little bit higher. Also, that luck being able to utilize a little bit more. Sure, 500G isn't really something. Honestly, if it was like 1000G whenever it defeats a foe, yeah, I think that would be a little bit better. But then again, it's super luck dependent. I don't know what's rate or not. I think there was someone that actually had to hack the game to make 12 different Anas and then did a map with it. And then it proc like maybe 4 or 5 times. Not really that much, honestly. Whew. So if we're just grading her as her growth rates per se, yeah, Mage is good. She doesn't really have to worry too much about getting babied like Clan was, but it's more or less because of the reason that you're swapping into a mage instead of swapping into a physical unit. Physical units, if you try to, especially in this game, if you try to level them up, it is a little bit harder to do because I mean javelins are a little bit weighty. I had to actually put like Leaf's build once for Clan to be able to like wield some of the weapons, so that's one of the things where I'm like kind of in comparison with them. Whereas a mage, you have that 1 to 2 range, and she'll be able to at least be a magic nuke by the end of it. So yeah, I would probably say B. As much as I am really, I really think she deserves a C, but that's what I would rate her.
I can see that. Because you're also going to get a second seal shortly after you get her, so if you want to use your second seal for her, I could see her going to in-game. Don't allow her passive, but she'd be good for raw stats.
So, next we're going to go with Jean. Has the personal expertise, grants unit enhanced stat growth when leveling up. I don't know why they didn't just say double class growths. Relatively like decent spread. Speed is relatively nice with 40%. What's really good with Jean is that compared to the other villager slash training units, he starts with a staff, meaning that he doesn't have to divvy up too much in terms of experience with other units. He can just kind of use a staff up to getting up to the point where he can finally promote, and having double class growths, he'll work with whatever you want him to be. I personally put him as a sage so that he'll be able to be a magic nuke, and then in the end game I put Celica on him so that he'll be able to do Ragnarok Warp and be able to obliterate opponents. So yeah, he's really good. He was definitely one of the harder carries of my playthrough, being able to run around most generals and whatnot using the Dire Thunder combo. So that was really good. However, I would probably put him in B tier.
Okay.
Now, of the reason of what can Jean provide that other units can't in replacement? What the build I've done essentially is exactly same as what another mage that comes in with Thunder would like to do, without any of the Master Seal and Second Seal. She'll be able to do that just with a Master Seal being, promoting up. I'll just name drop it, might as well. Citrine, right? Essentially the same thing. Dire Thunder, you can do that with her and it will work the same thing. And then with, I also saw Warrior Jean as well, but you have to make it so that you have to get a second seal, wait until chapter 8 to recruit Jean, immediately reclass him into an Axe Fighter, and then make him work up to getting to that point. Whereas you could not do that and then just get Panette. He's good and he will probably be the best unit that you have, but the amount of investment that you put on this unit, you could put it on somebody else. There's units that'll just naturally do what Jean does, albeit slightly worse. As much as I give Jean credit for being a magic nuke, he almost got run around by almost everybody because of the fact that I had to bolster the thunder attack a lot, and it comes to a certain point where plus 5ing a weapon is like way too much, so you have to put engravings to be able to upgrade the thing. And I mean, what's the most damaging one? You got Roy or Ike, the thing that increases the weight of the weapon. So he got like one-rounded because he was constantly getting doubled.
I would also put Jean in B. While I did not use him, I will not acknowledge him, and I will not use him. I would still put him in B. Because of his passive, he is going to do anything well that you put him in. He's not going to be the best, He is going to take some investment, but he will do it well. He will take it in game. He is also easier to get to level 10 than some other characters, say Ana, because you can just get him to level 10. You can give him the promotion, and then you can second seal him, and he's good to go. Whereas, I believe if you second seal without promotion, you go back to level 1. I could be wrong on that.
Yeah, it does.
You do?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's part of why I would also put Ana in C, because you would have to get Ana to level 10 in this class that she doesn't want to be in, hurt her growth a little bit, and then you've got to like promote and then second seal. It's way more investment than Jean. So Jean's going to do it really well. Much better. Granted, you are going to have to promote and second seal if you want to make him something different. Or you could just second seal him out the gate, and then like he's good. Because he's at level 1. And he's going to make it work. He is going to take the investment though. So I'll put him in B for a lot of the same reasons as you. There are just some people who would do it better. He's too much investment, but like he can do it. He can do it better. So we got Alchrist, the first Prince of Brodia that you meet, the younger prince, and also the second archer that you get after Etier. His passive is Get Behind Me. When an ally within 2 spaces is attacked, grants +3 strength to unit for 1 turn. This character, S tier. Easy S tier. Best archer in the game, by far. These base stats, amazing. He makes Etier look like a joke, I'm gonna be honest. Because his passive, first of all, is way better than hers. I actually thought it was +2 strength, not +3. So the fact that he gets even higher strength just because somebody near him is attacked, i.e. Louis or Jade or any of my tanks, that's just insane. Because he's going to have that ready super easy for the next turn. Also, fun fact, if a smash attack from the enemy pushes somebody into the within 2 spaces range, he still gets the passive.
Huh.
So, something that only happened 1 time in my entire run, but I did notice it when it happened.
Okay.
That is an amazing passive, because it's almost always proccing if you've got Alchrist like around some teammates that are in a fight, and like it's amazing. Way better than FTA's passive. His growths are better, his build's better, he's gonna be able to use better bows, he can take hits because he's got 30% growth in defense, which is actually kind of insane. He's just got it. He's gonna carry you all the way to end game. If you give him the Lin ring and he promotes, every single shot of Lin's like Astra Storm can proc Luna. So he's gonna do damage. There is no question. You put him next to Alir, give him a strength tonic if you really want to, have him pop Astra Storm, like chances are things are dead. I was skipping entire mechanics of maps because Alchrist Lin just like deleted the issue. So thieves, not a problem. They never got to the chest. And trap stabs, what are those? Never dealt with one. Free stabs, silent stabs, he's got that. Don't even worry about it. So Alchrist, amazing unit. And if you put him in the Unaka smoke bomb, he's not going to get hit. He's a dodge tank. He has covert. So he ends up being an effective tank through dodging as well as being a solid DPS. Now granted, he doesn't have the 1-2 range because, you know, obviously bow. But he can do a lot by himself. Like a lot. So he is easy S tier. And probably one of the best units in the whole game. That's my opinion on Alchrist. And he's best boy.
Yeah, I agree with most of the points. Even the ranking, I would say, yeah, definitely a S rating for me. I think this is the only unit that you can look at the battle forecast, see 0 on his damage, and then still be like, yeah, sure, I'll take a swing at it. And then whenever he gets a ludicrate, like, he just kills the opponent, which is really funny to see. Oh yeah, his promoted class does give him Luna. I think out of the brothers, I think he uses it the best, mostly because of that really high dex that he gets, as well as the growth that he gets. I also did put Lucina on my Alchrist, being able to not only almost one round an entire boss's health bar, but to also provide support for the preceding attacks. So very nice. If you couldn't tell already, I did use a lot of dual assist shenanigans, so Alchrist was always in on that. I think I also put the Lin engraving on his killer bow, which really did overall help with critting. It was to the point where I was a little bit more disappointed in Alchrist for not critting in certain scenarios. Probably, yeah, like you mentioned, Lin Ring probably would have been better for Alchrist, because there were certain things that I was struggling with, in which case, in your playthrough, you were like, I just Astro Bowed or Astro Stormed. I don't know what you were talking about. And you know, having a covert unit do plus 20 or plus 10 range for a maximum of like 20 range for Astro Storm sounds pretty good. So might try that out. I don't know. It will probably definitely help his. He had a problem with doubling at a certain point, but I'm pretty sure Lin will be able to patch him out with a little bit of that. Yeah. So yeah, no. Overall, higher dex. Tour d'Elite. I don't know. I'm not French. I can't pronounce the class name, but that one really bolsters his dex, so that he'll be able to use the passive. I think out of all the other units, him and one other unit might benefit from their passive the most. Their active skills.
I see.
So yeah,
But yeah,
easy yes.
I think it's interesting you say he had an issue with doubling, because mine was the opposite with the Lin Ring for sure. He was like easily one of the fastest people in my team.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, you know, plus 10 speed with Speed Taker would be
kind of
nice.
a big deal. And Alacrity, like, he's going.
Plus, I mean, hey, if you got him to attack 2 times, that's technically 2 times that he's gonna crit, potentially. So. I'm gonna go with Citrine. I talked about her briefly when I was going over John. This is probably a min-maxer's wet dream in terms of like what she brings to the table. She's a magic nuke. Can't take a hit though with defense. No, don't. I would advise against it. But res is really strong, and also that was the other thing with John, being a good amount of res so that he was able to mage tank. She basically essentially does the same thing, albeit maybe a little bit weaker, but the amount of investment that you have to put on her is lower. If you can actually get the Dire Thunder on her, I think she will be a very serviceable unit for that one, which also frees up a Emblem Ring for anybody else to be able to use, so I think that's really good. Her personal passive, Generosity, when this unit uses a healing item, adjacent allies also recover the same amount of HP. I don't know when I would have been able to use this, but it is a nice passive. I'm not sure if this one actually stacks with Celine's personal as well, and if that's the case, then okay, cool. So yeah, no, that makes it overall a lot better. I'd probably put her at B. I don't know if I would put her in A, because aside from using that incredibly niche thing, I don't know how she really does with combat overall, because that speed is pretty low for the chapter that she comes in. So
I would also put her in B. I'd probably put her in very high B. Solid magic user. Really good Dire Thunder user. If you wanted to take her to in-game, you could. I think if you're doing like a hard playthrough or even maddening, she could definitely do it. I just think there are better options than her, primarily because of what you mentioned with her low speed growth, and I really do not like her dex growth. I think high dex growths are very important for maddening as well, because of accuracy issues, and because some enemies in the late game are going to be like super fast. I think she's going to be B because she's actually really solid for Chapter 11 if you want to go ahead and promote her to her Sage like I did. She'll be amazing Dire Thunder user. She could probably one-round most of the things in the map. Very solid unit. You can take her to in-game, but later on there are going to be better options. And also, she suffers from mages kind of being locked to Sage and Mage Knight, which I think Mage Knight is okay, and Sage is not a cavalry unit, so she doesn't really have the mobility like some other people would that are going to come up later. Now we have Lapis. She is going to be our first sword fighter unit, first backup sword unit that we get in the game. Her passive is Share Spoils. If there is an ally within one space, grants hit and avoid +10 at a cost of crit -10 to unit. I'm putting Lapis in B tier. I think her passive is very bad, but her speed is really good, and if you turn her into a sword master, she will have some serviceable strength. I will put her in B because she can work. If you have her by yourself and you don't have to worry about the crit, then it's fine. Because like you could put her in Yunaka Smoke Cloud in like the corner, and if it's just her and Yunaka in there, then like it'll work. Or like you only put people in like the corners in front of Yunaka, it's fine. But I really do not like her passive. The -10 crit on somebody that wants to be a sword master, which is usually a crit class, is very bad. That hit and avoid I don't think is worth it. So I put her in B because she can work. I think she would need higher strength growth to be like A or something. But she can work. You could take her to endgame. I wouldn't. And the main reason that she's B compared to like earlier units who could work is that she comes in at a time where she's going to have a decent amount of SP. You can give her a skill or two. She can be promoted fairly easily. She doesn't have to get reclassed into something else. She's pretty low investment for what she's going to do. But there are going to be people who do it better than her. So that's why she's B.
I did see that some people rate her like insanely low, like Alfred levels for it. I wouldn't be that harsh on this unit, but I would probably peg it down a little bit lower and put her at C. Yeah, that passive is just weird for a sword fighter. I don't know. Her whole join chapter is an enigma. She was like, I'm gonna teach you how smash weapons work. And I was like, why would you detriment yourself from not doubling if your speed is that... The speed growth is that high? Like, why would you do that to yourself? I have no idea why. She was the one that introduced the smash mechanic with a... Was it an iron blade? I think it was an iron blade.
Iron blade.
Yeah. Now, I will say that her middling strength growth can make it so that's a pretty good candidate for a Wyvern Knight. That'll overall help with what she has. It'll also help her out with that strength growth. I think 40... No, I think Wyvern Knight was like, what, 20%?
It is 20%, yes. I could see her being a better Wyvern Knight for sure, now that you brought that up.
Making it into 45%, and if for some reason, if she can't double a unit, she also has Air Raid being able to put +3 on the unit if they attack from like an untraversable tile. I'm pretty sure she's going to be fine with speed with a 55% speed growth, so don't use her on Swordmaster. I will say Swordmasters, honestly, as much as I did like them in like previous games, they fell off hard compared to the other classes that's in Fire Emblem.
Yeah.
And even the starting Swordmaster later, I would probably promote him or reclass him into something else, just because run through might be okay, but there's so much better class masters that you can work with. Rather than just being able to attack and then just move past the unit.
I agree. But I do think Wyvern Knight would be better than Swordmaster now that you've said it.
Yeah.
And that's actually even more of a reason that I would put her in B, personally. Also, Air Raid is +5, not +3.
Oh, really? Okay, well that's much better then. Oh, I might be thinking of the Mage Knight one. Chaos style?
Yes, you are.
So yeah. Definitely really good. Also, this is the only case where, I don't know if you've seen Lapis as a Wyvern Knight, but that color scheme actually looks really nice. Essentially, it's what you're seeing on the screen right now, except it has like the Dragon Knight like armor for it. Same color scheme, but it works really well for overall aesthetics, if that means anything.
I'll have to look at it. No, aesthetics are very important. I'll have to look at it later on.
Yeah, I would have want her to be a little bit better, but I think pink-haired sword fighters are just cursed to be not that great. Take Marissa, for example. Easily get overshadowed by Joshua. So
yeah, Joshua's got that on lock.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Mr. I should be the MC of this game. That drip though, it's real good. So with Diamant, it was one of my endgame units that I did work with. Everything kind of just works against him in terms of his promote in class. Soul is a nice ability to have, but at the same time it also goes with his dex, and I think the successor's dex cap is like around like the low 20s. It's pretty bad. Like you can't rely on Soul as much as you can rely on Alcris for proccing Luna. So I will say the axe and sword access, more specifically being able to have S rank for swords, was nice for him. His personal is a fair fight. If unit initiates combat, grants hit plus 15 to unit and foe if foe is able to counterattack. This one is okay if you can break the enemy units. You can use like a really inaccurate weapon like the Brave Axe and then put like just a damage engraving on it, and he'll still be able to make it work because he'll be able to double twice. His speed isn't the best, but being able to just double and then making sure that the enemy doesn't actually hit back would be nice. His overall bulk is also okay, but eventually in the later parts he does fall off a little bit. Granted, I will say Diamant is an interesting unit in terms of, so in Roy's Paralog in particular, he was able to do relatively fine with like evasion tile from like the trees and then a hurricane axe. With the amount of wyvern knights that came up, he was able to do relatively well with that combination, which I thought was really funny. That's the only time I actually was able to say Hurricane Axe was worth it. But yeah, weapon availability of having axes and swords makes it good. Backup unit is also very nice to have. He was also my dual assist shenanigans unit. Having access to tomahawks was really nice for that. I don't know if I'm planning on using him a little bit more, or if I am, I'm probably gonna reclass him into a hero, which probably would make him maybe at around do I really want to put him as A? I did put Unica as A. Yeah, I'll probably put him at A, but he's very close to getting B, mostly just because of him getting notched down with the fact that you would probably have to reclass him.
Okay. I would agree with the B tier placing, just like off rip. I confirmed his max stats for Successor on Dex, and it is 23 on Dex. I personally think that's way too low. So I think while you could, use Brave Axe, Engrave, all that stuff, I still think it's just like not worth it to be that low because of how highly I value Dex personally and how much I think people need it. If his Dex was higher, I would like him better. But with his Dex being so low, I'll put him in B. Because he does come in at a time where you can give him Master Seal and he'll gain access to Hand Axe Tomahawk, which is pretty huge for a backup unit. So I can give him that. His passive isn't bad if they... Oh, no, they do have to be able to counterattack. My bad. I'm not even going to say what I was about to say. I just think he's like middle of the pack. I think he's serviceable, but I would honestly put him lower if it wasn't for the fact that he can promote off-rip. His poor dex growth is what I think holds him back. His other stuff is fine, but that dex growth hurts. So I would put him in B because of that one thing, and I would definitely make him something that isn't Successor. I would probably also make him Hero or maybe even Halberdier. I'm not sure. Something that isn't Sword. Probably like some kind of Spear or Axe.
Also, to add a note on this Diamant himself, I did put Erica ring on it, so it did overall help with this damage up. He was a pretty good bruiser, player phase bruiser. He was really good for that, especially when it comes to the later chapters with the corrupted enemies. Having Sieglind did help him out overall with the damage output.
But yeah, B tier for me.
He's painfully average. Yeah, I'll probably just knock it down to B. You did bring some good points about his dex, because like his personal does help him out with that low dex on player phase, but he can't counter with it, so.
Yeah, they have to be able to counterattack. Yo, let's go. Alright, so now we have Amber, one of Diamant's retainers. the first retainer phase that we're introduced to, we get him in the same chapter as Diamant, and his passive is Aspiring Hero. If no other units are within one space of unit or foe, grants plus 20 hit at a cost of avoid minus 10 during combat. I am actually looking forward to using this character in later playthroughs that aren't going to be my High Priest playthrough, because I think this character is solid. I would put him in B tier, just on paper, because I actually don't know anybody who's used him, and I don't know what he can do yet. But I know that his strength is solid, build growth is super solid, so I could see him being able to use the heavier weapons later on. And I think he would actually end up making like pretty good class out of like a few things. So I'm looking forward to using him, but I do think his dex growth is really low for what it is. I think he has a good base, and I think that'll kind of help him out. But his lower speed and dex will make me think he will probably need to be on like a bulkier class. And generally that means he's not going to be as accurate. So I'll put him in B for now, because he's no Louis, although he might end up serving a similar purpose. But I think he's going to be really solid because of his passive as well. Because if he's on that bulkier class, the avoid minus 10 is not going to be that much of a problem, because he can take the hit. And he's going to get the hit plus 20. So it should help.
Yeah.
However, if I make him a Great Knight, I think... Is the Great Knight passive within 2 spaces your ally has to be behind you?
No, it
Or
has
is
to.
it like
I think it has to be adjacent, like directly behind.
directly behind? Yeah, those are going to be very counterintuitive. Because he is going to lose the hit at the or he's going to lose the hit and gain defense, or he loses defense and gains hit. So it's going to be very interesting trying him out. And because I think he's going to be kind of weird to use and like a little unorthodox with his growth, I'd put him in B. Because it's very unclear of where I need to put him, although I am excited to try him.
I can agree to that, except for probably the ranking, probably at C. I think this was around the point where I was really just debating like who do I even need as a Cavalier, and then I just kind of dropped all of them for the Prince Solm. So
That's fair.
So yeah, that happened. But here's something that's interesting. With most people that had their personal priorities for Amber found success with a Brave Lance Amber on a Halberdier. You don't have to worry about speed. He will quad. Even with his middling speed, he will quad with it.
Yep, and Halberdier has pretty good dex growth, so that'll actually probably mitigate that really well. I could see that. I could see that really well, actually.
I'm not sure how much he's good. I could also probably say that he might be able to move up depending on how well he does with it. Because as opposed to Diamant, I can see him, like with that build, I can see it doing really well on player phase. Whereas Diamant still might have a problem with one-rounding certain opponents. He might just be able to break him at the most, but I don't know if he's going to be able to completely kill them if they, without having to rely on emblem rings. We will say C for now for Amber from me. Maybe he'll have a glow up.
I think I have a glow up.
All right, Jade. She is the retainer for Diamant, the second one that you'll meet. Her personal is mediation. Did I spell that wrong? Is it supposed to be meditation?
I think it should be meditation. I think
it
might be a typo.
Did I? Let me just double check. Yeah, no, it's I forgot one T. Meditation. Okay, so if unit uses weight without attacking or using items, grants res +2 for 1 turn. She's the other armor knight that you get. I think she's an axe knight, right? If I memory serves me right.
She is axe knight. Yes.
Yeah. Overall, the introduction chapter that she comes in does make her look pretty nice, being able to just kind of tank at least like 2 to 3 turns worth of enemy phase. So looking through it, she's a little bit more balanced as opposed to Louis, but more or less just because of the higher res, she'll at least be able to tank a mage. I do believe with those growths and the passive. I don't have the general rating for this one, but looking with your end game card, I do think that you might have a better rating for her. For now, since I put Louis at S, I'm probably gonna put her at A, just because I don't know how well Louis would have done if he had slightly lower defense.
Okay. I can follow that up and say that I would also put her at A. And with you questioning how Louis would do a slightly lower defense, Jade is your example of how Louis would do a slightly lower defense. Because Jade, while I am putting her in A, she's definitely like lower A. Because she doesn't have the strength or defense to keep up with Louis, and she actually has a lower defense growth than some other characters, believe it or not. There's a couple characters in particular that I'm thinking of that have surprisingly higher. She needs to be babysat to really get going, unlike Louis, who's like ready, like out the gate. But the reason that I would put her in A, even with that babysitting, is that once she is going on that general class, she's going. Because the general class is still going to do its job very well. She did suffer from the same issue as Louis, in the sense that she did have an issue hitting people. So her and Louis both kind of suffered from that, but they were also both really solid at what they did once I got them going. So for her, I had her as my go-to Icring user, and also kind of mitigated her defense by giving her the +3 defense passive. So once I was able to get that passive on her, she was fine. But not taking passives into account, I would probably put her at like B. But for me, she was A, due to the fact that I was able to like babysit her, get her going, gave her that one thing that really put her over the top, and like she was doing it. So I could take her instead of Louis into a map and be perfectly fine if I really needed to. Plus, she's not going to die to a mage as fast as Louis would. Now, due to the fact that mages are so strong in this game, I still would not recommend letting her get hit by a mage. But she could do it. She could take one if you really need her to. But also, like, please try and avoid that if you can. Because if she gets hit by that mage and there's at least one backup person, she's dead. So be careful. She's solid, takes a little babysitting, but she can get you to in-game. But yeah, that's what I think of Jade.
Okay.
Probably wouldn't use her in later runs, though.
Oh, really?
Yeah, probably not.
Hmm.
Just because I think dodge tanks are better in this game.
Gotcha.
For maddening.
See, I didn't trust the hit percentage, so I went with the defense for Louis. But yeah, well, I'll have to try dodge tanking a little bit more.
So now we have Ivy, the first prince of Illusia, or princess of Illusia, and I think she's the first Illusion. Oh yeah, she's the first group of Illusion characters that we get. Her passive is single-minded. During combat with a foe who is also unit's most recent opponent, grants hit +20. I would put this character in A tier. I think she's probably one of the best mages you can get. Even though she is one of the best mages, she has a couple flaws. One of those being her dex. She does not get a lot of accuracy. Her accuracy is actually very bad kind of throughout the game unless you give her a reforged tome. I had to give her a reforged Bolganun tome to really help her catch up. Otherwise she was having like 60s and 70s throughout the game. Also, the only time you're really going to be able to abuse her passive is if you use her as your dance target. Her passive is honestly more situational than you might think due to that. When it does work, it's helpful. But if she's fighting like a knight or something, then it's not going to matter. So she was very matchup dependent in mine. And she was a solid staff user outside of that. While I think she's solid, I think she could have been better. And her being a flying mage helped with that, because she had a lot of utility. with that, and that's probably the best way that a mage could have been in that game, is a flyer. Sadly, her and her sister are the only ones that could be mage flyers, outside of one other person that's non-playable. But that's what I think of Ivy. I think she's A tier because she is solid and good at what she does, but I think she could have been better. I don't think she could like solo carry at all.
Ivy, I would probably pick a little bit lower and say B. I put the Byleth ring on her. Being able to have a flyer that can also do dance means that if certain flyer only tiles, if there were units that were landing on only flyer tiles, I could still be able to do the goddess dance to be able to do the 4-way, reset. So it's really nice for that, but mostly that's just a compliment of how good Byleth is. Also, the other reason why I put Byleth on her is for the pulse. What's it called? Pulse something.
Divine Pulse?
Divine Pulse, yeah. And I was concerned with the amount that it procced, because I put that one just as if she misses, there's a chance that she won't. And every time I saw that meant that she technically missed. One thing that's a detriment to her, I will say, is the fact that her class makes it so that she's, compared to her sister, she is worse at using the staves, but a little bit better at using tomes. Both of them are flyers, which means that they don't get the mystic ability of being able to avoid or ignore terrain bonuses that the enemy is on. This, coupled with the fact that she has that dex, means that there's a pretty good chance that if any enemy was just on an evasive tile, then yeah, she probably would have missed. On top of the speed, the middling speed that she has makes it so that she can't double if you take the Lin ring away from her. This is another case of how Alfred's was, if you take the Sigurd ring away from him, you can see how good Sigurd is. But in this case, if you take the Lin ring away from Ivy, you can tell how slow she is.
Yeah.
Definitely put a speed taker on her. This is like one of the biggest tips, I would say, if you're going to be using her. Make sure you have enough speed to be able to put speed taker on her. Once she has that, then you'll be able to get the ball rolling a little bit. Probably one of the best candidates of using Novatome, because she'll eventually be able to quad units if she has enough speed to do so, and even if she doesn't, she'll at least be able to double them. Also, her bulk for res is pretty good. She's actually like surprisingly bulky on both defense and resistance in the later game, so if you just make sure you patch up her speed with speed taker, or speed +3, that was one of those base increases, I think she's overall fine. But it's the weirdest case of a snowball unit, I would say, and eventually it came to the point where I was like, okay, I'll just have her using staves and then use obstruct. There were certain cases where I really wanted to use a higher level staff, but I couldn't. If I did train her sister before that, I probably could have. That's the unfortunate thing, and why I would knock her down into B tier. Like Diamant, she'll get to the point where she's like pretty good, pretty okay, all-rounded unit, but she doesn't really have that one thing that she excels in. And I guess, yeah, like you mentioned with the personal single-minded, you really don't want to dance a unit to just secure a kill. You want to be able to just dance another unit to get another kill.
Yeah, they're much better uses for dance than using it for her single-minded, so it's like single-minded is rarely ever used.
Okay, next we're gonna go with Kagetsu. Did not use him, but this is basically Harken Incarnate, especially with that base. Holy crap, I don't know what they were thinking when they put that much stats on. I don't know, this guy's cracked in terms of his starting base, but it's really good. If that wasn't enough, Blinding Flash, if unit initiates combat, inflicts avoid -10 to foe during combat. That's just strictly a better passive when it comes to comparing it to Lapis. This guy, if you're using Lapis and if Kagetsu came in, yeah, just go ahead and replace her with him. Again, it also comes with the unfortunate thing of Swordmasters not being that great, but if you put him as a Wyvern Knight, he will excel. He's gonna be fine. That Dex and Speed, yeah, pretty sure he's gonna be good. And that growth too, holy crap, that's some really good growth. So, can't say for certain, but I can definitely say that he is A, can't go lower than that, possibly to S, depending on if you're willing to put even more investment onto him.
Alright, so I use Kagetsu. And I will tell you, this man's easy S tier. So I did not leave him a Swordmaster. I actually did not use him until like way later in the game. Like, I don't think I was using him till chapter 19 or 20. I didn't even use him immediately after I got him. Yeah, it was like super late in the game. But the moment he got like a few levels, he was on par with the best. I initially had him as Swordmaster, but changed him over to Wolf Rider. So after making, which Wyvern Knight would have been better, but after making him Wolf Rider, he just didn't care about anything ever, because he was essentially like a slightly weaker Panette for me, but he was able to abuse the smoke bombs better, so he was part of the Yunaka team. And him being in that meant that he had Killer Sword, he was out here critting, I could use Hobble if I really needed to, and he was just able to like solo things. I could put him out by himself and like not be worried, because I knew that he would win most of his matchups. And again, that's what me putting minimal investment into him and picking him up late in the game. If I was using him from the moment I got him, he would have been even better. So this character is fumble proof. You can't you can't mess him up unless you like make him a sage or something. And like, what are you doing? Please stop that. He is an amazing character. Definitely like second coming of Harkin. He's just solid. You can make him a lot of things and it's gonna work. There is no reason this character would not be S tier.
Yeah, no, definitely excited to try him out. Yeah, I don't know why they made it. I mean, this seems like a unit that you get like at the very last part of the game.
You would think so, right?
Yeah.
But I think he has some of the best stats, even from like the later units that come in. I don't think anybody beats his base stats in the game.
Yeah, 22. Yeah, the high or low 20s just starting off is.
And 40% growth in defense. Like, what? He's bulky.
This is not a growth rate for a Swordmaster. I'll say that.
No, he was my Roy user.
Oh, okay, interesting. Oh, that actually might help him out overall, because yeah, with that rise up passive, being able to, yeah, I can see it. Oh yeah,
you're on the same page now. So now we have Selkov, the other Illusion character that comes in with Ivy. His passive is not quite. If foe initiates combat, inflicts hit -10 on that foe during combat. I think Zelkov is going to be easy A tier. I think very similar to Yunaka, he's going to serve almost the exact same purpose, except being better against physical targets rather than magic targets. So he'll be able to handle like the backup swarm a little better, and his passive is going to let him dodge tank better than Yunaka could, because there are a lot of times where snipers will still go for Yunaka. So him having that extra -10 hit is going to help. I'll have to see how the AI works with him in later playthroughs, but he would also be solid core and smoke bomb user. You could pick him or Yunaka, have no issues. I personally think I might end up picking Yunaka over him, simply because I think dagger users being solid like mage counters is a good idea. But that's just my personal opinion. I think Zelkov or Yunaka could both serve the exact same role. Easy A tier. Both their passives are good for different reasons. And yeah, I think Zelkov is one of the best enemy phase passives because of the hit -10. There aren't a whole lot of characters in this game that I think have good enemy phase passives. Definitely A tier. Will not take a whole lot of investment. Comes in on the class he wants to be on. You give him cornering and like just watch the man work.
Yeah, I would probably rate him. I mean, on a personal level, same as Yunaka, maybe slightly, just like one higher. If we're going with like the left and right tier list that you see, I would probably put him one left of Yunaka, specifically because I favor strength a little bit more, and maybe the base might actually help out with the overall problem that I had for Yunaka when I mentioned that she doesn't do as much damage. Well, I mean, Zelkov's the answer, at least for me. So maybe I just chose wrong. Maybe I just chose the wrong thief. So yeah, excited to try out Zelkov because that was the one character that I was like about, just because I didn't know how good or like iffy Yunaka's passive was at that point, because didn't really have Corn at that point. So I was like, oh, I'll wait and then see if that crit plus 15 does work. I mean, in certain cases it did, but yeah, it was all right. But yeah, Zelkov basically further helps overall with not getting hit. Sure, he might not do so much crits, but yeah, that strength might help bolster his ability, as well as that dagger engravement giving a good strength boost to his overall damage output. Yeah, I am seeing that res can't really rely on him too much with mages as I did with Yunaka.
So notice how these tiers are getting higher as we get later in the game.
Yeah, they're getting pretty high. I think there's only like one unit that I can really think of that might be like kind of low.
I got a few.
Oh, ooh. All right.
I got some salt for my run, dude.
Oh, Jesus. All right.
We got Fagato, the Prince of Soul, and the first character that will join your party after you complete Chapter 11. He's got pretty solid base stats across the board. His passive is Charmer. During combat with the foe who is also unit's most recent opponent, inflicts crit -10 on that foe. I personally think his passive kind of goes into the same category as Ivy's, if not worse. I don't think the crit -10 is that big of a deal. There are very few matchups where that's going to matter at all, and with him being primarily archer and like anything you would want to reclass him to also be an archer, he shouldn't really be having a crit problem to begin with. He also does not have the bolt to be taking crits like that. So I think his passive is kind of useless. I know that if you change Fagato into a warrior, he also gets really good, because he'll get a lot of strength. I think he also gets like a huge strength boost and loses like no dex if you do that as well. You could also make him a bow knight. I'm gonna try warrior Fagato because that sounded pretty lit, but I think overall I would end up putting him in B tier with the potential of A, depending on how warrior goes, because I think the bow knight skill as well as his unique skill for his lord passive are both like pretty bad. I don't see a lot of use out of those, so he kind of just becomes like a glorified sniper, and I think you would even rather put him on the sniper class than be on those classes. So he will take some investment to like kind of get going. So I would say B tier for Fagato.
I will say, kind of just did it on a whim, and it was a really funny build. So I kept him as Cupido on my first playthrough. He was in my team until the end game. Kind of like mediocre at first when I did start him off, until I started messing around with like, okay, what's good about him? Looking at the base magic stat, he's a pretty good contender of getting the Radiant Bow. He'll make it work compared to any of the other units that you do, and I'm pretty sure he retains probably one of the higher magic, even reclassing as a warrior, just because of his starting magic is just that high. Definitely keep him into a bow class and it'll help out, especially with Wyvern Knights. He can one round Wyvern Knights with Radiant Bow. So the funny thing about him is that I didn't have anybody else to put this ring on, so I put the Roy ring on him.
Oh no.
And something funny happened with it. Roy Cupido, he became my like off tank.
I'm sorry.
And it was really fun to just see, because okay, rise up, right? Increases level by 5. Looking at the speed and health level ups for it, he'll get consistent amount. Now, as an off tank, you want to be able to bolster his defensive res. Binding Blades basically fixes that for you by adding +5 to both of them. On top of that,
I see where this is going.
on top of this, Cupido class, which has one of the weirdest ability, adding whatever damage that you would have taken. Yeah, he can use that well. He just has enough defensive resistance for him to take damage, and it kind of works well with the back at you class, especially with the fact that the Banyan Blade was a 1-2 range weapon. So it kind of just works out with him. It was really funny to see, honestly. Because he was able to at least have like 1 or 2 rounds where he was like, I'm going to use Blazing Lion to put everybody into this little hold. And yeah, he was an off tank. Like he was tanking most of the units in Kaya Paralog for me because of that. It's really funny to see.
That's insane, because I'm also thinking about that. And then you also have holdout, so like he's not gonna die.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
It was an interesting build. Would not recommend, but it was funny to see.
It's good for the period he synced up. I can see that.
Yeah. I was glad that he didn't fall off as hard as I thought he was going to, but still awkward. So yeah, I think B is fine. Like you mentioned, Warrior works a lot better for him, but another reclass issue. So that funds could be used somewhere else. Okay, you probably have a better opinion about Pandreo, but I'll go first. So Pandreo, one of the retainers of Fogado, his personal passive is Party Animal, grants a bonus to hit and avoid equal to 3 times the number of allies and foes within 2 spaces. Looking through everything from here, I think in terms of if you haven't built a mage by this point, he will definitely cover in that department. Probably would be nice to be able to reclass him into something else, but I mean the starting base is already good, so that if you don't have the funds to get a second seal immediately, he should be fine in his starting class. Also, I really did like the fact that he started off with the warp staff. So yeah, Pandreo, I can potentially put him in A with everything there. I would still need a little bit more testing on my part though.
I think Pandreo is easy A tier. High A, if not close to S. Because his passive is insane. Party Animal makes him incredibly consistent. Because he has a crazy high speed growth. So he's actually gonna kind of dodge tank if he happens to get jump or is caught out of position. His magic growth alongside the High Priest class is pretty good. Looking at it real quick, High Priest has a 25% mag growth, so he's gonna break 50. He ends up getting like 85 resistance percent growth, so he can easily tank the mages in the game, which is a huge problem. So he actually covers like a lot of characters' bad matchups with those super strong mages, and he just does damage. Most of my run, he actually had the Raging Fire ring on from the Bond ring. And I think it was Lilina from Lynn's group. And
Roy.
It's Roy's? Okay, that's right. Lilina is Roy. He ran an Elfire Tome the whole game. And he just like killed most things. So he just does damage. He attack, he protect. Like, he's got it.
Did you not want to put a baloney on him, or?
I just didn't understand the refine system at the time. I
Okay.
think if you did put one of those on him, he would be even better, because he has a solid build growth as well. 50% is really good.
Yeah.
So like he can run the Bolgan Untome, and he would probably do like even more numbers. So Pandreo is crazy good. I think he might be the best mage, if not one of the best in the game. I think he blows everybody else out of the water. Party Animal is an insane passive, dude. Like once you get people stacked up, it's actually insane. Now we got Bunet, the other retainer for Prince Fogado. He is a Great Knight class, and his passive is seconds, ? On eating a packed lunch, unit may obtain another of the same item. The trigger percent is his luck stat. I honestly don't have much of an opinion on Bunet, because he just didn't have a slot for me to try him in my run. I think overall his stats are really solid. I think he's going to be better than like a lot of the early characters, simply because he does come in as a pre-promote, and pre-promotes are just amazing in this game. His strength is on par with Amber, so I feel like Amber would outscale him in the long run. But I'm just not 100% sure. And because of that, I do think he's serviceable. He's got the stats to be serviceable. He comes in as Great Knight, which is a good class. So you don't really need to invest a whole lot into him because he's going to be able to tank and like do his job because he does have like the stats and the growths for it. He doesn't really have like a solid passive to work with, I think. I think you can give him the seconds because you should be cooking food before each mat. I don't know. I think he's like a good like region tank with seconds, but I don't see him standing out when you have people like Louis and dodge tanks that you can use like Kagetsu and some others. So I would put him in B, but I could see potential for A, in my opinion.
Okay. Man, you rated him a lot higher than I would.
He is hard B until proven otherwise.
So funny story. My Alfred beat him in defense. By the time he got it. Granted, the whole well thing, but then again, it is an important thing to note because this is around the time when you are getting into the midpoint of the game. Maybe a little bit earlier than that one, but you have other competitions like the literal next chapter that comes in. Coupled by the fact that you also have Kagetsu kind of just out the gate swinging. And yeah, that seconds is nice, but it's probably one of the more weaker ones. Honestly, it's
definitely weak.
It has too many conditions for it to be good because you'll first have to make sure that you get at least like a decent ranking on your cooking to be able to use it, and then the whole luck stat makes it so that it could work if you use it. And I would have to double check on this whether or not you can eat a meal if you're at max health. If you can't, it's going to be very awkward for you to try using that skill, because the only thing that I can really think of him working well with that seconds is if it's going to happen, if it's like a 50-50, right? Having it with Celica's ability of immediately refilling the engage meter whenever you eat a meal would work great. I think that would have been like the route that he would have liked to go to. But nowadays, if he's getting beaten defense, if slots are getting a little bit filled up more with like some of the other retainers, his join chapter is fine because he has that bulk to be able to tank. But I would also think that it would be harder for him to beat slot in majority of the teams, mostly just because of that speed. He's basically, if you didn't build Alfred, but if you still want Alfred for some reason, then you pick him. There's going to be another class like that for Boucheron, actually. Probably put him at C. He's just slightly better than Alfred for me.
No, I can see that. I could go B, potential to C. He's not going up to A now that we've had this talk.
Yeah.
You made some very good points.
Also, I guess characterization wise, he's like the most Awakening Fates character of like, I have this one thing and I will base my entire personality with.
He absolutely does.
Yeah. So next we're gonna go with Temera. So I'm gonna go with this one. This one's I guess for Psalm, she would be the rightful heir. Personal skill of Racket of Psalm inflicts crit -5 on foes within 3 spaces. She's okay. She's definitely a better tank than I would have thought, especially with the higher speed that she comes off with. Yeah, there hasn't been a really big of a problem where she's getting doubled for it. Sandstorm, her picket ability, makes it so that she can, occasionally do bigger hits, and also the class cap is significantly better than the successor skill for Diamant, so she'll be able to proc Sandstorm a lot more consistent than Diamant was able to do with his. Defense is nice, res is kind of iffy. I guess if you don't really have a halberdier, and if you want a halberdier that can tank, she's good for that one. So you're kind of trading off Amber's massive offense for Temera's like more defense oriented one, but hey, backup units are backup units. They're still pretty good. I would probably put her maybe in B, because I can also see a good reason of, if I really wanted to do the Roy thing again, I think she will also be pretty good at using the ring as well. just because of that mixed bulk that she has with defense res. I mean, res is kind of iffy when comparative to Pandreo, but then again, you're not really wanting to do that. Also, her S rank lance makes it so that she can equip the Broniac, which would be, I don't think a lot of characters are competing against having that one, but having an S rank 1 to 2 range lance is nice for the end game, so I don't think she's gonna fall off too much on damage.
I'll agree with that. I don't think she's really going to fall off either. I think she's very weirdly consistent, because if you do make her the picket class, then I feel like she relies more on her skill proc rather than her raw damage, because her strength growth is awful. I think if she had 10% higher strength growth, she would be like easy A tier. But because of that, I'm going to put her in B, because I do think her passive is good. It's just like a nice like quality of life thing, because as you get the late game maddening, there are going to be a lot of characters that are going to be able to like crit, right? I think that passive is nice. Her stats are nice. She's going to be able to do some tanking if you just want like your backup spear user, like you said. Dex and speed solid. She's going to be consistently doubling, if not, going even with a lot of things. She's going to hit. I just think she's a little too reliant on that passive or the skill from her unique class. And I think that's literally the one thing holding her back is her strength growth. And she also doesn't have that high of HP. I don't think she's going to be like a consistent tank. I haven't used her as a tank myself, but I don't think you really want her in the front line that much. I think she's good off tank. So I don't know. She's kind of weird. I think she's serviceable and is very easy to get started. I just think she doesn't have her one standout like trait. So I think there are just people who do it better than a lot of what she does.
Her name says it best, or at least in the Japanese version. This is the only like name switch that I've seen. Mysterica was her name in the Japanese version, and she is an enigma, at least for me.
Okay.
So, okay, we can probably just agree that this is S, right?
Yeah, this is S, if not the best character in the game. Next to Alchris. Like, also a top 3 character. Now we got Panette, one of Tamara's retainers, and Pandreo's sister. Look, bro, they got the S tier genes. I'm gonna be honest with you. But her passive is Blood Fury. If unit's HP is not at max after combat, grants crit plus 10, as long as unit's HP stays below max. This character is like the embodiment of the Berserker. You get hit one time and she just gets mad. It doesn't matter how little the damage is or how big it is. I've actually seen like some really funny builds with people putting resonance on her. And I was just like, that needs to not happen. Because also she was using a tome. And I was like, I see why you're proccing the passive, but stop. I think if you give this girl just a killer axe and anything to make her like slightly tankier, like slap a Seraph robe on her or like a Draco shield, or even just a ring, like Ike or Roy, or I used Hector. She was the one that used my Hector ring in my run throughout the whole game. The moment I got Hector ring, it was on her all the way to end game. If you give her any of these things, she's going to be amazing, because she comes in with a lot of SP. Shortly after you get her, spoilers, you'll be able to get the Leaf's passive on her, and once she has, or passive being Vantage. Once you get Vantage on her, you get Wrath, and then you also get some other skill that she can have. That could be like Quick Riposte from Hector. You could use Veronica's ring and give her whatever Veronica's thing is, where she does more damage when she takes damage. Whatever that is, Reprisal, I think. You can give her Reprisal from Veronica. You can give her Quick Riposte from Hector. Any of these things to make her like a good enemy phase unit, she just does damage. She was easily like the most consistent character in my run, because she hit 100% crit for free. I gave the Lin engraving to her Killer Axe. Killer Axe +5 with Linen Engraving. And because the Linen Engrave gave her so much accuracy, she just did not miss. Sure, I lost like 2 points of damage, but she did not care. She won like every matchup in the game. There was nobody that could just beat her. Plus, when you give her Hector's ring and you're using his ring skill or whatever you want to call it.
Was it called the Eye of the Storm or something?
The Storm's Eye, yeah.
Storm's Eye, okay.
When you do that, it makes it to where the enemy cannot do follow-up attacks on you, but you always do follow-up attacks. To add on to this, if you use Storm's Eye next to somebody synced up with Lynn's emblem, it becomes Storm's Eye Plus. And what that does is it makes it to where you go first, and you do both of your attacks first. So even if people come at you, you just have guaranteed advantage. It doesn't matter. Guaranteed advantage, guaranteed quick riposte. Like, you're done. And because she's also a backup unit, because I made mine a warrior, she gets an extra +20 crit on top of that. So, like, this character cannot be bad. This is one of those characters that you have to intentionally mess her up. Similar to Kagetsu. She's just amazing. Easy S tier.
I will definitely agree. I am interested to see how the Hector one kind of goes with it. I'm also gonna try her out to see how she does with like other weapons, because I'm pretty sure we both leaned on crit for her just because of her insane passive, as well as good base, good gross for dex, really good for strength. And honestly, yeah, the only reason why I would say you want to reclass her out of Berserker into Warrior is not really because of the bow access. I mean, although that is nice. It's mostly just because that she just caps dex really fast.
Yes.
The only problem that I can really see her is just speed, which is kind of fixed with your Hector engraving, not being able to get doubled. So I used the Ike engravement on her, which did help out overall in terms of her abilities. It did pair really well with Wrath. She was hitting hunters both hit and crit. Sometimes her crit rate was even higher than her hit rate, so
that will happen.
Yeah. I would like to test her to see how she does with like a Brave Axe instead, to see if like the raw strength is good enough, which I mean, I'm pretty sure it is. Yeah, relatively good. Low speed makes it so that she's kind of iffy on it. Definitely becomes a little bit shaky whenever you use Great Ether on her in the late game, because of so many backup units that can just go through her defense, as well as Zero Void makes it so that she does get doubled in those situations. Granted, she is taking half damage at those, but it stacks up. So definitely heavy consideration of maybe just getting Wrath and then maybe passing the King to somebody else, but she does fine with it, because I mean, yeah, that health growth is also like ludicrously high. So
yes, and on Warrior class, she's guaranteed health every level up.
So she's good. She's good. All right. Speaking of,
quick little fun fact on her. Uh-oh, I lost it.
Uh-oh, what's the fun fact? Gonna be lost.
Hold on. What was my fun fact?
Well, looking at the wiki, the fun fact is that her age is 18.
That's not where I was gonna go with that, but thank you. You know what? That's your fun fact. I'm done.
We're gonna go next into Marin. Man, Tamara just has really good retainers. Her passive is Nightly Escort. When 2 or more female allies are within 2 spaces, grants hit and avoid +5 to units and those allies. This is basically just reaffirming my previous claims of female leader just being a little bit better because of Marin. And yeah, this is another case of a pre-promoted unit that just kind of works out well. This is also helped immensely by the fact that she does come out in her map with a silver dagger, which I think that's like the highest tier of dagger that you just kind of get for free at that point. Ooh, one thing I did forget to mention about Panette is that her join chapter makes her look feel like ass just because of her low speed. Some of the Wyvern Knights could kill her just mostly because of the fact that like any sword will basically be able to break her, and then any other units will be able to follow up with that. So that's the unfortunate thing about Panette. But yeah, just make sure you just put her with like any rank, or just like reclass her and stuff like that, and she'll be fine. She really just needs an engravement on her weapon.
Yeah, she needs that and live through that chapter.
Yeah. But Marin is actually surprisingly the better tank of that chapter. I think probably one of the best in terms of that chapter in particular, because of the fact that she has that good speed, being able to evade a little bit more than Tamara, being able to double the enemies, and yeah, still being able to take a hit if need be. Also, I'm surprised that she's kind of split on both defense and res. That's pretty good. Yeah, I would probably say I would probably put her at, I want to say S, but then again, I would have to do a little bit more testing with it. I'll put her at S for now because of the stats that she comes out with. You could reclass her into a Wyvern Knight to also help out with that strength, so that'll be relatively nice. Having a good base speed of 50 does make it so that she'll be able to be fine with going into a Wyvern Knight, but Wolf Knight's also really good with that. Wolf Knight in general is just a really nice class, especially with their passive of being able to reduce the movement by 2. Put Cantor on her and she'll be able to just poke an enemy and then leave. Opponent can't do anything. They'll try to catch up to her, but she can't. You can also put a Lucina emblem on her and make it so that any of your other mounted units get a 100% guard for it. But that's mostly just kind of Lucina, but it does kind of overall help out having a backup unit that also inflicts poison on the enemy. So like most of the kits that you can kind of put into her, she works out fine. And yeah, you don't really need to put that much work to make her at least like middle or higher tier in your team composition. So yeah, lower S, I would say. Could make an argument that it might put her into A, but still overall good unit. So what do you think about her?
I think, well, first of all, before I get started, I want to ask a question. If she's a backup unit, I think you said her backup attack poisons?
Mm-hmm.
Is that how that works?
Yeah,
Like, does it actually poison?
Yeah, the knife just has to do damage, and then yeah, it'll work.
That's actually kind of insane. But So, even with that information, I'm gonna make an argument to put her in A tier.
Okay.
I do think she's A tier, by the way. I think it's mainly because of her strength growth, and I'll tell you why. To start off with, I think if you make her Wyvern Knight, it's gonna mitigate all of this.
Mm-hmm.
But if you leave her as Wolf Knight, she actually comes in with the exact same base strength growth as Zelkov. Same strength stat, I should say, base stat. They both come in with 15 strength. And Zelkov comes in with only 2 points lower in dex and speed. And I think higher defense. Yes, higher defense. So Zelkov's class is also going to raise those even higher. Whereas Wolf Knight is only going to give you like 5 in strength. She's going to have higher dex and speed, but Zelkov has overall higher strength. Now, I do think that can kind of be mitigated a little bit with the dagger stat growth, because, you know, daggers get insanely strong by refining them. But I think Zelkov could potentially be the better dagger user than her in general. However, I think her passive is better, and I think her being on cavalry class with such good dex and speed is also really good. I think she's just not going to do the same level of damage as Zelkov or even Yunaka could. Because even Yunaka is going to be able to out-damage her in the long run. But I still think she's really solid. I think they're all A tier. And Marin is good for like all the chapters she comes in on. She's going to be good for a while. She's not falling off until late game, just like the others. The only difference with her compared to those is reclass aside, the other two can dodge tank better than she can. So they're going to be doing the same level of damage, if not higher damage, as well as being able to be a frontline tank. Whereas Marin can't really do that as well as they can, because she doesn't have that covert bonus to help dodge. And her passive doesn't really help dodge as much. She's good for like helping the whole team, but the other two kind of do it better. So that's why I would put her in A. I think all three of them, well, it's outside of Junaga and Zelkov, which kind of do the same thing. I think she has the things that make her more useful than them, i.e. Lucina being super long-range backup that also poisons, which is crazy. Fun fact. And I think she'll be better on the Lucina one. I think that's the main thing that's going to set her apart. But outside of that, I think they do different things. And I think she's going to be A tier for it. Because she overall is going to do lower damage. That's my reason to put her in A.
Okay. I can see that. Yeah, no, definitely the strength is something to consider. Yeah, in terms of like comparison with the other two thieves, or just the other two knife wielders. Oh, actually, sorry, this is gonna go off tangent, but if you want to put another list of interesting Panette fun facts, she's
fun
proficient
fact.
with knives.
Why?
And if you look at her support conversation, she did bring up the fact that she can ride wolves. So,
Actually, no, that makes sense.
yeah,
I do remember that conversation about the wolves.
interesting fact. But I digress. Two of the other thieves, I think this one is great mostly because of the fact that she's built a little bit. If you were to drop them in like any other the later game maps, yeah, she's probably going to be the one that uses the least amount of work, just because of, you know, higher bases. That's how it works. But the other thing that I would like to address is the fact that she also does have sword access.
She does have that. I will give you that.
Making it so that she's a little bit more utility focused on being able to potentially break the enemy with that. As well as the fact that higher mag makes it so that if you don't really have an 11 sword user, you could basically put that on her as well.
I'll give you that. I will absolutely give you that. And it's something that I think I might want to try.
Yeah, so I think in terms of versatility wise, she is better in terms of that front. Also, I guess like as good as thieves are, it is hard for me to reclass them into something else, because of the 2-tier system versus the 1-tier system that dancers and thieves have. I think you have to level them up to like 25 or something, and then they'll
21.
be able 21. Okay, it's a little bit awkward to reclass them into anything else. Granted, why? But and then yes, I am putting a heavy emphasis on terms of the Lucina emblem ring on her. Not only would she be able to cover 100% of their first attacks with the mounted units, but also being able to get that like extra +5 hit on whoever she's guarding. So I think overall utility is one of the major things why I would rate her the highest out of the other two.
With the argument of Levin Sword, I could see her being low S. High A. I was gonna put her in high A anyway, but I could see low S. You have convinced me.
That's good. That's what we're here for. We're trying to challenge each other in terms of viewpoints of certain units, because yeah, there might be some certain bias when it comes to certain units.
I absolutely have some bias. We're getting very close.
Oh, speaking of which, all right.
Oh no.
I'll let you start off with Hortensia.
No, dude, stop. We're not gonna do her like this. This is Hortensia. Be nice to her. She is the other princess from Elusia, and she is Ivy's sister. She is also the only other flying magic unit in the game outside of Ivy. Her passive is Big Personality. When unit uses a healing staff, grants range +1. This girl is A tier. There is no B, there is no S. She is A. And it is strictly because of how good her passive is. Big Personality is really solid for like helping out on positioning. She's a flyer, she can get to places a lot of people can't. The places she can heal from is nice, because she can safely heal compared to other people who, bar using physics staff, will have to get really close to the enemy. And her unique class also gives her access to the World Tree ability, which can make it to where she does not consume a use on the staff. And with her awesome dex cap and growth, it's going to proc pretty often, which is going to save your wallet a lot of money in this game and your important stabs a lot of uses. So she's going to be A tier. She's not going to be doing a lot of damage. Just give her a Thundertone, let her be safe, and do like some chip damage when you need to. But outside of that, she's probably like the best healer in the game, outside of Pandrea. Yeah, be nice to her.
Alright, before I say anything, what would you expect for me to put her in?
Honestly, I don't know what you're gonna do to her, because I can't tell if you're just shitposting and calling her a whore, but...
Hey, I didn't say that.
How did you start this off? I heard your emphasis. Look, dude. I'm gonna say you're gonna put her in A or B tier. I don't think you're putting her in
Alright.
What was that sound?
First of all, I did hear her English voice actress. If we're just going off with that, we'll just say B tier.
Okay.
If you're just going with the Japanese one, she's a lot less grating to hear compared to another child.
Not even that bad. Oh, you're talking about...
Yeah.
I know what you're talking about.
I will actually put her in S.
There's no way.
Strictly because of the fact that... Also, yeah, no, she's... The character-wise, she's insufferable. That's the reason why I make fun of her. That's the only reason why I make fun of her. Mostly because of the fact that... Let's say that you do promote her into the Self-Near Writer, right? You level her up to 5, and then she gets full tree. Being able to proc, that is nice. This is probably the only unit that you can just hard drop afterwards, then put back into the later chapter, and she'll still do her work well.
I agree.
And for having a unit that doesn't mess with anybody else's XP, being able to do that, on top of which putting the Mikaya ring on her makes it so that she can warp, rewarp, rescue, all that, and also have potentially not using a charge, which I prefer putting the Mikaya ring on somebody else, but this is probably one of the best ones that you can put on, mostly because of the fact that you can also use the obstruct staffs to charge up your engage meter. You can farm for it. So if you have some empty turns that you can do, you can just use obstruct staffs and it will just work. This is really important when it comes to staff usage, and she's probably the best unit for that one. She does not need to see any bit of battle at all. Like, this is probably like the second best utility class per se, aside from Dancer. Like, she's good. I don't think that there has been a unit that I can safely say in most Fire Emblems where I can say to use her at a certain point and get her to a certain level, and then just, she's another essential tool that you can just bring out of the bench if need be. That's the main reason why I put her as S.
Okay. Valuing that utility a lot. The only reason I had her in A is because she can't fight. Which I guess Dancer also can't fight, and Seedall is S, so, but dancers are always S.
Yeah, because when it comes to my rating, I also do take into the factor of what you want them to do and whether or not they can do their job well. Asking Kagetsu to, I don't know, use like magic is something that I wouldn't consider, but as a physical unit, he's an S. Louis having physical tanks, you know.
I see.
Yeah.
Point has been made.
So, yeah, Hortensia is just really good for that. She just does well. She gets out of people's way in terms of EXP distribution. So, easy S for me. Honestly, probably one of the higher ones.
I hadn't even considered like the XP thing. So, that's also a very good point to bring up. I'd give her S. Yeah. You're right. I shouldn't be valuing damage that much. Especially because Seedall exists.
I mean, this is coming from me where damage is king, so having that utility is nice. So, yeah, so probably a little bit of a surprise for you of how much I bully. It is a surprise
because all you do is bully this girl.
All right. Speaking of the utility one, I'm gonna go with Seedall. Curious Stance at the start of turn, allies within 2 spaces of unit recover 10% of their max HP. if there was any reason for making like another tier higher than Hortensia, I think Cito's just there. The fact that he's already a dancer, like none of these stats really matter, honestly.
No, not a single one matters.
But for some whatever reason, they were like, okay, increase the thing that he would make him able to evade better. 50% of speed. I don't know why they put that on the growth rate, but glad that they did. 55% for HP. Glad that they did do that. I don't know why they did that, but it's there. This also coupled with the fact that Curious Stance makes it so that they can recover 10% of their max HP, essentially making it so that your staff users get a little bit of a break and actually go on the offense. So if you want units like Fortenzia to be able to attack, to just at least get like a single tick of engage meter, this will work out really well. Chain guard, I mean, I've heard some debates of like people being like, well, it's a dancer, why would you use chain guard? But it's relatively nice to have it on a unit that can just do that, essentially isn't really fighting. For the longest time, I didn't put the emblem ring on him, and I just put bond ring Deidre, so renewal. So
nope. I did the same thing.
Every 2 turns, he would be able to get a heal off or be able to be at max HP so that he can chain guard again. Relatively nice. I also put mentorship on him because whoever he dance, he will be able to get the XP multiplier. So it's really good for that. He's probably the most like out of the way unit when it comes to XP distribution because there's nobody in the game that can dance as he can without the help of an emblem ring. Also, in terms of the emblem ring, don't put Byleth on him. He definitely appreciates getting danced on as much as he dances on everybody else.
Yes, do not give him Byleth. I will maul if somebody gives him Byleth. Right?
Overall, really good unit. If there was an SS tier, I would put him in there. Probably just, I can just put him in high S, like high SS actually. Definitely deploy him. You can't go wrong with a dancer in any Fire Emblem game. And yeah, having Curious Stance on top of that, if you keep leveling him on his class, he can also give dex speed. I think something else, like +3 buff on whoever he danced on. Also, last thing, I did put quality time on him as well, so that whoever he danced also got a flat 10 HP heal.
We did the same build.
Yeah.
We did the exact same build. I was gonna bring up quality time.
He's just good. Like utility wise, he's the best.
I agree. Everything you've said, I just agree. There's nothing else I can say here. The man's like SSS. He is the off healer. He does the utility. If you Byleth dance him, he's gonna bring even more utility because you can do some crazy combos with Warp, Canter, Byleth. Now that I've learned your strats, the man's solid.
Yeah.
It's insane. He might be one of the best dancers I've ever seen, if not the best, just because of like his passive and quality time. Because off healer dancer is a broken combo. And also chain guard with renewal ring, like he protect. He super protect.
So yeah, that's Cito. S for Cito. SS for Cito.
So now we got Rosado. Much deeper voice than I expected when I first heard. I'm not gonna lie, in the English dub. One of the retainers to Hortensia. Passive is Stunning Smile. If foe is male, inflicts a void -20 on that foe during combat. I think Rosado is easy A tier. Comes in amazing bases, solid class, amazing passive. Giving -20 avoid to male units, which is a lot of enemies. Rosado's gonna hit, and he's gonna hit hard. He's gonna hit very hard. Solid class, just all around solid. There's like no weaknesses outside of bows, but it is what it is. It's a flyer. Build is a little low, so smash weapons are gonna slow him down a little bit. But if you just hold on to the smash weapon to use with like the emblem ring to like superpower up whatever emblem ring you give Rosado, solid damage. You cannot go wrong using this character. Similar to Marin, and once you get air raid on Rosado, like he's gonna hit. You're gonna hit hard. You're gonna hit fast.
Okay, I can see that. With Rosado, I would probably put him in a tier lower than you with B, more or less because of the fact that, yeah, that build will weigh him down. And I guess in terms of like the damage department, yes, he will hit hard, but I think there's a lot of units that can already do what he's doing at a much better capacity. Panette, for example, Kagetsu, for example. It's kind of awkward to put Rosado, mostly because of the fact of the join chapters, I will say. This is around the time when the game already puts like way too many units that you can even fit in your battalion or your group. And yeah, if I was doing some kind of like Iron Man run with this game, I think he would be fine. Reclassing him into like warrior would also work fine, especially with the strength growth. I think this is relatively similar to what Panette's growth looks like. I think that's when I was looking at a side-by-side comparison, the strength is relatively the same as well.
Yeah, they're pretty much the same. I think they are the same.
It's just a little bit harder for me to put Rosado a little bit higher, just because of he's okay. He does his job like relatively okay. I think Stunning Smile is fine. Maybe somewhat of an overkill, honestly, with the higher dex. Like, I don't think he really needs it, honestly.
So I just took another look at their stats and growths. Rosado's actually got better growths across the board than Panette. The only growth he is not tied with or better than is build. That's the only thing that's lower. Everything else is the same or higher. The big difference between the two of them, though, is the passive. Panette's passive is just way too good. But Rosado, I think, counter argument to you talking about we get a lot of units. I think if you specifically wait for Rosado, which is going to come with game knowledge, then he'll be a really good slot to like put in, because you're going to have plenty of filler leading up to him if you want to make him part of your main team. However, if you're doing a blind run and have made some mistakes along the way, like maybe you picked a character to Vander, Alfred, and you need like a replacement unit, then like Rosado's got it. Rosado is going to be very like newbie friendly as well as like experienced player friendly. While there are a lot of replacements you can get, he can replace anybody. So if you're prepared for him, yes, he's good. If you made some mistakes and need a replacement, he's also good. He can do anything you need him to do, and that's why I would put him in A.
Gotcha. I just kind of wish he had a little bit of slightly better bulk comparatively to the other units. Yeah, it's kind of like, I can't really find anything that's like super good.
I'm about to maul. His bulk is so good. He has 95% HP growth in Wyvern Knight, and his defense is at 50%. He also comes with some of the highest HP base stat in the game.
That's true.
I'm mad.
I
can't believe you said what you said.
It's just like, yeah, it's difficult. I think it's mostly just comes to, at least for me, the ranking comes from the fact that like the unit's already filled up. Granted, if Rosado came in a lot faster, yeah, definitely would be nice.
I will agree with that. We definitely needed Rosado earlier in the game. His late join chapter is his only downside.
Kind of wished Rosado came in a little bit earlier. I think that's my
I also do.
my great. Mauled Mary. I don't know why you were saying you were gonna maul.
Well, I'll tell you why. Wait till it comes my turn.
All right, Gold Mary is also B-ish. I would probably put her. She's fine. I think this is around the point where I personally valued heroes more than any other class, but then again, that's also a bias of Brave Assist. Kind of already comes with the class of that one. Her personal is Disarming Sigh. If foe is male, inflicts hit -20 on that foe during combat. It's okay. It's not like the worst thing. Honestly, if I was going to be using Gold Mary for future runs, I probably would just kind of put her in the sidelines, put Brave Assist, and then also Dual Assist on her, and basically just let her do whatever. She's fine. I don't think I'm going to be building her, but this is more or less kind of in the same category in terms of Rosado, of like late join chapters, so I don't really know what to do with Gold Mary. Rosado, I can definitely think, yes, can potentially make him into more of a damage dealer if I do wait for my resources and then invest in Rosado whenever he does come. But in Gold Mary's case, she's just there. So, yeah. But I think she's fine. So I'll probably just put her in B. What about you?
Man, this character, D tier.
Oh dang!
For dog water, bro. I hate this character. Let me tell you why. The reason you don't know what to do with her is because she doesn't do anything. She has terrible growth across the board. Dex, awful. She's not going to hit anything. Speed, awful. She can't even abuse her own passive. Dodge tank, what's that? She can't do it. She's going to get hit. She has high defense growth, so you think she can tank, right? No, she can't. Because there are better tanks in the game. Louis does it better. Jade does it better. Jade has a lower defense growth. Does it better. And, it's insane, bro. This character, there's nothing this character can do that'll outshine another character, and she comes way too late in the game. She can't hit. She doesn't do damage. The only thing she can do is be a backup bot, but there are other characters that do it better. Boucheron literally exists. You could build Boucheron, and he's a better hero than her. You want to talk about her being a hero? At least Boucheron does damage, and he can be a hero. At least he can hit. He can hit. He's fast. He may be able to double. He can use a smash weapon. She can't. Look at her build. Garbage. Ooh, I hate this character. This character was dead weight my entire run.
Oh, jeez.
Because I ended up using her over Rosado because she did really solid in her join chapter. And then I started thinking about it more, and the only reason she did so solid is because that was the last chapter you were fighting non-promoted units. And then after I realized the only reason she did so well is because she was fighting nerfed enemies compared to her, I was like, oh no. This character is not good. She is also the reason why Louis had so much trouble hitting, because the only way I can make her remotely useful was to give her an engraved spear so that she could finally hit something.
Oh,
but then,
okay.
even though she could hit something, she did 7 damage? In the last chapter of the game, you're useless. You are dead weight. You die to everything. This character is not good. This is the most dog water late join character I've ever seen. I'd rather use Carol.
Well,
I hate this character, bro. Dead weight. Never in my days am I using her.
yeah, very, very fair. You have experience with her, so I can definitely attest to that. Yeah, I guess it really just hinges more on if you can use, even with my planned, hey, use her as a backup unit and then just kind of not have her do anything. You did come up with the point of if you build Boucheron, right? This is also another character that potentially doesn't need as much resources as Boucheron. So if you just get that passive, and if you have that empty slot, which can happen with the later chapters just because they give you, more slots on the last 2-3 chapters, I think. No, that's 4, right?
It's roughly the last 4 chapters. Yeah, you get the extra 2 slots.
So it's there. You don't have to build her as much, and in terms of that, I do weigh a little bit higher than a D. So I'll go with the middle ground and say C. She's probably, yeah. This is evil Hortensia in this case of hey, you can level me up to level 5 of my promoted unit, and then just you don't have to use me, or I can come back in any chapter and I can make work. Whereas Gold Mary is I can come back in any chapter, but I'll just contribute whenever I feel like it. And even then, it's not something that you would like to have. If you want another set of Brave Assists, great, but also last chapter kind of hinders that. So don't use me on the last chapter. Just use me on those like weird 3 chapters when you might have an empty slot. So that's how I would look at her. It's just in terms of if you want a hero, she's probably the least amount of investment that you have to put out of any other character. So this is basically a brave assist spot, yeah. And as for the she can't hit anything, yeah, no, I can believe you on that. That dex growth is not that great. So
I hate this character. For a character that talks so much about being perfect, she can't do anything right.
Ooh.
It's crazy.
Ooh.
I hate this character.
She has the best hero uniform though, because hero uniforms are bad, and
yeah, they're awful.
she's the one that at least makes it look okay.
I'm about to be petty. Even Bouchard makes it look better.
Ooh,
Bouchard's probably the only one that can make that outfit look good.
Dang.
Honestly, even with the extra slots you get in like the end game, I would still rather use the last 2 characters you get, because I think their utility is way better than anything she can bring to the table.
True. Just because D, at least for me, would be like teetering Alfred, and for that one you have to build him to be like okay. So
nah, bro.
I'll just put her at C. I know you feel very strongly about this character, but in the case of using her, if you're in an Iron Man run, she's okay. She just has to exist, and then she'll be subpar.
It wasn't worth it, bro.
Okay.
Like I was like, oh, she a hero. It was fine. It was not fine. It was far from fine.
I'll try her out, and I'll let you know.
Good luck.
Okay. I'm gonna need it.
So now we got Lyndon, the old man who joins your party later on in the game. Weapon Insight is his passive. If unit is equipped with a weapon of lower level than foe, grants crit plus 20 during combat. I did not use Lyndon. I don't know a lot about him. I will say on paper, his passive is okay. I do think it's weird that you have to sacrifice a lot of might for that crit plus 20, which may also be weird for me to say, considering I also said I did Linen Grave on Killerax, which lowers might but grants crit. But his is a little different in the sense that you are using like just a strictly lower level weapon. I could see him being pretty good, and I think his crit builds could go dummy. But I also think his magic growth is really low. I'm not sure if he can bring the damage to support the kind of build he wants to do. So it makes me very unsure of how he would work on paper to begin with. Especially because he has like pretty decent build. I think that's kind of weird considering tomes aren't that heavy to begin with. I want to put him in C with the potential of B? Or I may just put him in straight B. I'm not 100% sure yet. I'll probably listen to what you say and make my decision after, but he's weird, man. I feel like he has the base stats to support what he wants to do. I just don't know how well he does it.
So with Lyndon, I would probably put him at C, just because, yeah, like you mentioned, his growth isn't really that great, and you only have like a couple of chapters left in terms of being able to use him. Granted, if you save some of the paralogs, you might be able to get a little bit more use out of him. The only like serviceable build that some people have tried with him is a combination of, what was the Celica ability again? The one that reduces your health by like 1 or 2, but increases
Resonance.
Yeah, Resonance. It was Resonance Wrath with a Dire Thunder build.
Oh,
Very memey build, but having AC in Thunder, don't have to really worry too much about speed. I mean, that's fine. Now that I've said that, we also have to consider, okay, comparatively with the other mages, if I were to just completely take out Dire Thunder, right, out of the equation, out of all the mages, how does he do? He's probably not the best in terms of that. Even Citrine can do fine with the Thoron just because of the fact that she has that high of a magic set. If you were to reclass Anna, she has that high magic growth, so she can make that work. Ivy's also going to be fine in terms of just like overall magic, even with her base class, just because she has like at least a role and the overall utility of having saves. You could try to make an argument that he's a little bit better in the magic department than Hortensia, but she also wants to do something else in the team, so kind of iffy on that. John has better growth with magic, and at this point, you probably already recruited John. He's already like a sage if you really wanted to make him into an offensive unit, and yeah, he's kind of lagging behind on that. This is... You have to also take into a factor of like, okay, if you're doing a crit build, right, you're also going to have to get an engraving, which crit engraving is highly sought after by a couple of the units. Penette definitely would be one of these.
That's very true.
So yeah, it's kind of like iffy in terms of that. Sure, you can put an Ike engraven on him with the Dire Thunder, but that's, again, taking Dire Thunder out of the equation, he can't really do much with it. He at least has a build that makes it work, which I will... That is the reason why I would put him a little bit higher than Gold Mary.
Yeah.
But it's so specific that at this point, I don't know if you want to... If you're going with the Dire Thunder build, I don't know if you want to relinquish that from somebody and then put him in somebody else. Just because if you want to maximize the amount of Dire Thunder usage, you really want to be able to get that before Chapter 11. When Leaf is gone. So I'm pretty sure by that point you would have already had a Dire Thunder Mage built, whether it be Citrine, Anna, or John. And with those growths, yeah, they'll blow Linden out of the water. They don't have to rely on crits as much as he does. So
yeah, I feel like he kind of also has the same thing with like Rosado, where you have to prepare for him specifically if you're going to use him, and like save your slot, save your resources to like give him exactly what he needs.
Yeah.
But even then, I do think putting Wrath on him is bad, because he doesn't have the bulk for that. He shouldn't be getting hit.
Yeah, which is the main reason why you put Resonance on it, just so that like...
That makes sense.
Yeah, you just passively start losing health and then you just pray for the best.
Oh, I get it, you're praying because you're from the church. I see. Okay.
So
yeah, he's C tier.
Interesting unit. Meme builds are funny.
Yeah, he's definitely a meme build. It can work.
Yeah.
It's not worth it though.
No. Next, we're gonna go with Saphir. Her passive is will to win if unit's HP is 50% or less at start of combat. Grants a hit and avoid plus 20 during combat. Saphir is also interesting in the fact that this was the unit that I was mentioning in terms of if you didn't build Boucheron at this point, but if you want a Boucheron unit without any of the investments or whatnot, this is the unit that you would use. Essentially, you're going to be getting somewhat similar in terms of that. Granted, you're losing out on the +2 true damage of doing backup attacks with, relatively a higher strength. She does come out the water with one of the highest builds out there, so this is why I would also say, yeah, if you missed out on like doing a Boucheron build and if you want to kind of get like a good idea of like what it would have been, this is the unit to start off with, especially since at least with Boucheron initially how I built him, it was a warrior with Claude's Godwin +1 range for bows, and then just putting a longbow on it. She could do the same thing and it'll work. Mostly it's because of the fact that backup units have that whole scaling damage. You can put... She has the SP to be able to put Draconic Curse Hex on startup, and yeah, she's fine. It's just that her overall bulk as like a warrior is like kind of iffy, so yeah, definitely better to probably use a bow overall, longbow. So I would probably put her at B because of that, as opposed to any of the other units, right? You don't have to build her at all, and then whatever build I'm mentioning, you could just put that on her. You don't have to level her up like the Hortensia, and you don't really have to do the whole thing with like Gold Mary or whatnot. just equip the bond ring and equip the weapon, and then she'll just work.
I think that's a very good argument to put her at B. I'm gonna put her at C, simply because outside of the one build that I think you said, I don't really think she's doing a whole lot. And for me, C tier meant like they were useful in some aspect, but not in a whole lot. And I think she kind of falls into that for me. Whereas B is, for me, they can function pretty well, even towards endgame, as like, a standalone, or at least somebody that can work with a support. And I don't really see her taking a lot of fights. I mean, she has the bulk, she can take a hit from anything that's not a mage. But I would probably still put her in C, mainly because late join chapter. Low investment, yes. But late join chapter, not a whole lot of scaling with her stats because growth rates are really bad. Just don't see her doing a whole lot outside of what you said. I do think the Draconic Hex build with the backup is very nice, though. I think that would be really, really good utility. But I think that's probably the only way to salvage her.
Essentially, could do the same thing with Fogado as well, and he'll be a lot better doing that, so.
Yeah, which comes down to other people do it better than her, and she joins way too late.
Mm-hmm.
Plus, with that build, her passive is useless. I think her passive's kind of useless to begin with.
Yeah, kind of. It's there.
Yeah, like it's there, and it's nice if it happens, but outside of that, no.
But the ponytail, though.
The ponytails are nice. I do like ponytails. But it doesn't matter. It's not going to increase her rating at all.
Yeah. So she has the whole facial features of like an old person, right? 35. It's not that old.
War's crazy, man.
Man, that's a lot of stress.
It adds some years, man.
God dang.
Now we got Vale, one of our spoiler characters that come towards chapter 21, 22, something like that. Her passive is Fell Protection. Adjacent allies deal +1 damage and take 3 less damage. The opposite of your protagonist. I would give her B. I think she is really solid if you refine her weapon. But outside of that, the only thing she's really bringing to the table is like pretty good magic base stat and a really good passive. I think her passive is really good, especially because once we get into the late game, there are going to be people that do a lot of damage. I used Vale and the person who comes up after this, and like I took them both to end game. They did not leave the party once they joined, so I used them for as long as I could. I think they were solid. She has pretty good speed. She was able to double things with her unique weapon, like the little dagger. I did not really use her tome. I used her dagger more than her tome. I think she was solid. She had a couple really good matchups that she could win. So she's not bad, but she's not standout. I think she's overall just a really solid, well-rounded character for endgame. But if you know what you're doing, you're going to be taking characters that are even better to endgame. The only issue you can have with some of that is you don't get your last 2 slots until you get to endgame, to which she can fill one of those slots if you really need her to. So I would give her B tier. Could push for A, but probably B.
I guess I'll start it off with just like a question. In Fire Emblem 7, what ranking would you put Athos?
Athos?
Joins last chapter.
Since we're kind of forced to use him.
Yeah.
For his chapter, he's solid. I would give him, I guess, I don't know, probably B tier, honestly.
God dang, alright.
Because, I mean, it's not like he's bad, but you're kind of forced to use him. And he doesn't come until the end. He's not going to be standout. But, like, we are forced to use him, right? We do have to bring him, yeah. So it's not like he's bad, but he's not good. He's not going to make or break any runs, and he doesn't affect your run in any sort of way. I would say it's kind of the same thing here, where because you can't really like bring 14 units into a map up until the point where you get Veil. She's not really like influencing a whole lot. And if you were convinced you're only using 12 units up to this point, like on a blind run, then she's in the same category. I think I'll put them both B. They're like middle of the pack. They're not gonna hurt you, but they're not gonna like help you.
Okay, I'm gonna have to. Aside from this, I'm gonna have to try to convince you to bump up Athos a little bit.
Bump up
later.
Athos?
Yeah, a little bit later. But
Oh, so you're saying he should be higher?
Yeah. Which is, well, the reason why I bring him up is because I would probably also put Veil in probably as high as Hortensia, so an S.
Whew, okay.
Yeah. So, okay. Here's a couple of things to consider.
Okay.
Dragon typing is nice, right?
It's amazing.
You could make the choice of putting Byleth on Veil and then be able to use the Instruct skill to basically have like a rally spectrum with everybody, which I guess at this point you already have Robin as well to actually do that, but I digress. Base game.
Yeah, we have DLC now.
So there's that. She was the one that put the Micaiah ring on my playthrough, right? And the other thing that you have to consider with her is the promoted class that she comes up with. I think it was just called Felchild.
It has an amazing passive. But yes, it is Felchild.
At the start of turn, unit engage meters fill by 1. Now, I mean, this is also another thing to consider with the filling up the skill with, again, the Obstruct staff. I just have a real big bias for Obstruct staff. I love Obstruct staff.
Can she use staffs?
With the Micaiah ring. As opposed to Hortensia, where you have to build her up to be able to do that well, you kind of have to go balance out the two. Do you want that, like, starting maybe 20 plus-ish, you know, if you don't train her Hortensia as much, to not use a staff? Or if you've been stocking up on your staff uses and you're just buying, like, all the staffs from the store, you could also use Veil, not have to worry about the usage. You know, you don't have to, like, roll some dice to be able to get, like, whatever consistency with it. So with Veil, whenever she's not engaged or whenever she just freshly got out of engage, you could use her passive to get 1 tick, then use the Obstruct staff to get another tick. The downtime that she has for being engaged, especially in the later levels, is so low that she was engaged more than she was not in my last few chapters. She technically comes with the ability of deploying 2 more slots, so she's not really hurting anybody in terms of like viability or, you know, like anything like that per se. So yeah, you just deploy her and she'll just work out fine. So you don't have to put that much amount of effort onto her, and then she'll just kind of skyrocket. So that's the big thing of why I would consider putting her that high, is because I put Hortensia also really high, but she requires a lot less investment than her. And when I say a lot less, I mean like the bare minimum, you know, investment for Hortensia of leveling a unit up like 5 times. That's pretty easy to do. I did not use her as a combat unit, nor did I use her ability for Felf protection, because what I essentially did was, yeah, I did put the rewarp, warp staff, rescue, you know, all that stuff. Being able to just deploy so many units just in the front lines just immediately was great. Not only does she comes relatively late, but she also gets the benefit of having probably one of the highest starting SBs.
Does have a lot.
And at this point, you don't have to worry about not having any emblem rings, because you got them all. The one thing about some of the middle ground units that I have a little bit of problem with is the fact that you don't have access to all the rings and their abilities. If you messed up with like a proficiency of like certain like units, or if you want to reclass them for it, you'll have to wait until the leaf ring to be able to equip like the majority of weapons. And that's like chapter 16, I think. So there's that little gap.
17.
17, okay. So you have that like 5 to 6 chapter gap of like not being able to equip them into their respective class that you want to, you know, all that. So it doesn't hurt with the vast majority of them, but if you miss out on that, yeah, kind of feels bad. In Veil's case, she doesn't have that. Whatever access that you have at that point, it's dependent on how many parallax you beat at that point, but she'll have access to whatever you've gotten at that point, and then she'll have like 2500 SP. She can already equip Canter, which is nice, and I think in her case it's probably the best. You've probably seen the video, at least the one that I showed you, of using rewarp to warp 4 units, and then basically cantering away after she uses it, making it great for the Byleth user to just kind of go in the middle, be able to dance. She can use those tools insanely well, and she can use it at a much higher frequency than Hortensia can. That's the big thing when it comes to her. It's that everything is just there. I mean, like when I rated Saphir high, it was because everything was already there. But in Vale's case, everything is already there, and it's great.
I see. And honestly, I think this is also really showing like our difference of strategy playing this game. Because I admittedly did try and fight with a lot of people. Whereas, again, you focused, I think, more on the mechanics than I did. Because I had Marth on Vale. Because I was like, I don't know what to give you, take Marth. Everybody else is using other stuff. And she just, like, did not use Marth. I was using, she mainly just got like some speed buffs from Marth, and like that was it. So I definitely did not utilize her in the same way that you did, and I am perfectly okay with raising her rating after this, because just giving her Byleth Ring sounds amazing for the stat boosts. Because I think a lot of people can just use Micaiah Ring pretty well. Like for example, I had Micaiah Ring on Pandrea, and he got to use it pretty often. Or even, like, you could give it to Hortensia, too. Hortensia would be a solid one for it, because I know we brought her up before, too. But I would like her to have Byleth for, like, the universal stat boost, as well as, like, just the more dance opportunities. Because I always tried to save Byleth for, like, those pivotal plays. But on Vale, I can see myself being more liberal with it, to make, like, even more plays, clear maps faster. So I would definitely raise her rating up to S as well. And I definitely want to try and use her better in later runs now that we've talked about this. Because I like Vale. I thought she was fun. I just did not use her right.
Go with Mavier. This is the other units that you get. The former of the 4 fangs, Contemplative, is personal skill. If unit uses weight without attacking or using items, grants defense +2 for 1 turn. Do.
Yes.
So Mavier was also fine. But I think the thing is that he was, in terms of utility-wise, a little bit weaker than Vale, but that's mostly just because of how insanely good Vale was. Mavier is fine. He's got that mixed bulk. Flame Lance-wise, there's a weapon called the Flame Lance. There's some certain weapons that have magical properties to them, and Mavier is probably the one that can use it the best because of that really high magic starting base that he has. I mean, like certain units can use like 11 sword and whatnot, but yeah, he's the true being able to use like the mix of the weapons, the true tactician or grandmaster class of this game, but on a horse. Everything's just works well with him. I think he probably has the highest growth like total out of all the other party members, so you could slot him in on the team and he'll be fine. He does also come with that extra slot, so you could put him in and he'll just work. This is also coupled with the fact that he does have that good utility of being able to use saves. Saves is really nice to have. Extra healing, always great. Alleviate some of your sages to be able to go a little bit more on the offensive if you have units that are like that. Griffin Knights as well. So yeah, just overall good. Whenever he comes in, he's not like anything that I would say would be great, but the starting base is relatively nice. I think in terms of looking at the base, this is probably, compared to Vale and Mavier, Mavier is definitely more the Athos archetype of like coming in pretty decent base. Unfortunately, he doesn't have as much utility as Athos does with the flexibility of equipping so many tomes, but that's a different game. Yeah, Mavier's pretty solid A tier.
I'll agree with that. I think he's also really solid A tier. He can do pretty much anything because of his bases if you wanted to reclass him. Bases and growths. If you wanted to reclass him, he could do whatever he wants. I used him as pure utility as well, and he was solid. I ended up putting Staff Mastery on him because I was like, let's just make you Turbo Healer. You're going to heal people for a lot, and you're going to move a lot, and you're going to do things. And he did. He did it very well. I think I probably could have done better with him, obviously, because, you know, it was blind running. Cantor wasn't even on my radar. But he was solid. Solid pick. Wasn't awful. Wasn't amazing. Mainly because I just didn't put enough investment into him, or proper investment, I should say. But he did really good. I would definitely put him in my team pretty much every run if I wanted to. I would also put him A tier. Awesome unit. And once you get the late game, the post-story game, like, he's going to hit your max stats. His growths are amazing.
Yeah.
Probably one of the fastest to do it.
Pretty good. I mean, the only thing that's kind of like iffy is like luck and build, and even then, build's probably it's like one of the highest.
His build percent's the highest.
Yeah,
50% is the highest it'll go.
So yeah, even on paper, like yeah, it's there, but it's like it's good. You can't really go wrong with using him.
Actually, I take it back. Boosteron is 20. He's second highest.